Listen up, Cloya. You are finally of some use. You will become Diello Agenta's fake Philo, the head of that fire family. For our family, you are to steal his first 3 nights. Isolate Agenta's position. For the prosperity of our water family, Araz, you will sacrifice everything. If you fail, only a miserable death awaits you. Understand? Cloya covered her face, her body trembling with sobs. The clamor outside the carriage startled her. What the hell, Cloya? Araz looked at the mirror inside the carriage. A strange face was reflected in it. These memories, this appearance, this is clearly the plot from that novel I read. Did I get transmigrated into the illegitimate daughter of the villainous family, Cloya, Araz? This world is flooded with transmigration and possession. Why did it have to be Cloya? A dark novel called The 3 Great Ducal Families. Its core setting is the unique inheritance method of the 3 great families. The fire family, the water family, the wind family. A mark appears on the body of the strong, designating them as the next family head. To fully inherit their abilities, the head must spend their first night with their destined partner. That partner is called a Philo, and their name is magically engraved on the family head's body. However, if someone other than the destined Philo takes the family head's first night, they will be cursed to inherit only half of their bloodline's power forever. Even if they later unite with the real Philo, it will be meaningless. That damn Philo's mark can actually be faked with a forged scar. Moreover, the character Cloya, when the real Philo appears, she will be killed by Araz's own hands. Cloya's body falls in the rain, her life fading away. No. I absolutely cannot die like that. Cloya lowered her hands, her gaze becoming determined. She clenched the hem of her skirt. Cloya stood up. Am I supposed to just sit here and wait to be foolishly killed? Absolutely not. Things have come to this. I have no choice but to rewrite the original story. No matter what, I must survive in Agenta. Cloya Araz's gaze was resolute. To achieve my goal, there's only one path I can take. She turned and walked towards the magnificent castle. A man in splendid clothes appeared before her. He had short black hair and slender green eyes. I am Diello Agenta. Cloya. Miss Araz. Cloya covered her eyes. As expected of the only kind and pure male lead. Cloya walked toward Diello. I have something to say to the Duke in private. Diello ordered the 2 guards behind him to withdraw. The guards turned and left. Cloya looked directly at him. Duke Diello Agenta. Diello bowed his head slightly. Miss Cloya Araz. Cloya confessed. I did not come here to be your bride. Diello picked up the teapot and poured her tea. The tea flowed into the exquisite cup. Diello put down the teapot. Are you saying you want to break off the engagement? She continued, no. I came as a negotiator. Until your real Philo appears. Diello's gaze sharpened instantly. Cloya placed a hand on her chest. As your shield and contract wife, I will help you become the strongest family head. In return, I hope you will help me get revenge on Araz, the family that cast me aside like a disposable item. Diello was silent. He picked up his teacup and took a light sip. Just now, you said, until the real Philo appears. Yes. Diello put down his cup. I clearly saw my name on your back, and now you suddenly claim to be an imposter. Diello leaned back. So, you're saying Duke Araz deceived me. Diello rested his chin on one hand, his gaze turning cold. In that case, we can no longer continue this conversation so calmly. Cloya sat quietly. I know that if my identity as a fake Philo is exposed, Agenta will have every reason to declare war on Araz. I'm well aware of that. If I had truly intended to deceive you all along, things would indeed have progressed to that point. Cloya stood up. Her footsteps echoed in the room. She walked towards the desk. Cloya picked up a small blue bottle. Diello's gaze followed her. Cloya held up the bottle. Diello's pupils constricted slightly. Healing potion. Cloya opened the stopper and poured the potion on her own back. The blue liquid shimmered faintly. What? Cloya said, the name Diello Agenta is carved on my back. Cloya undid her clothes. It was forcibly carved on. Diello's pupils contracted in shock. Cloya looked back and smiled. Is this enough to prove that I'm not your real Philo? Diello asked. I knew Agenta was underestimated, but I didn't expect it to be to this extent. Do you think Agenta would spare a deceiver? Cloya took a step forward. No, I would surely die. However, I have no intention of following Duke Araz's plan. Even if I did, neither of the two great families would let me live. And the current head of Agenta is seen as the weakest. That's why Araz and Cattle look down on you so much. Cloya looked up at Diello, so I'll say it again. Let's get married. Diello looked down at her, his expression complex. Cloya added, for just 1 year, until your real Philo appears. We'll make both great families lower their guard. Cloya looked directly at Diello. After your power awakens, we'll join forces to crush Araz. In return, I hope you will protect me. These are the terms of my deal. Diello watched her in silence, a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Diello raised a hand and lightly touched his lower lip. You came here under Duke Araz's orders. What must I do to earn your trust? Cloya met his gaze. I came to Agenta alone. I have no power to protect myself here. In other words, whether to turn this crisis into an opportunity is entirely up to your choice, Lord Diello. A smile touched the corner of Diello's mouth. Very well. Diello pulled Cloya into his arms. Petals danced around them. Then let's get married. He looked down at her. Cloya recalled her determined gaze. A knock sounded at the door. Diello's voice came through the door. Come in. Diello sat at his desk. Is it confirmed? Pierre bowed and reported. Yes, the name on her back is definitely fake. She reacted to the healing ointment. The mark is disappearing. Diello listened quietly, holding a pen, his expression unreadable. Diello tapped his lower lip with the pen, lost in thought. Those red eyes stared at Diello. Let's get married. For just 1 year, Cloya proposed a deal. Use me until you find your real Philo and reclaim your power. A slight curve formed on Cloya's lips. I am the key to making Araz and Cattle lower their guard. Diello looked at her in silence. Diello spoke. Reclaim my power. I'm not sure what you're basing that on, but the current Agenta has no power. Just because I inherited the family title. Cloya interrupted him. No, we still have a chance to stop all this. Diello's gaze was firm. Even my own family doesn't believe in me. Cloya continued. If you were truly powerless, the others would have abandoned you long ago. Besides, the Agenta family's intelligence network is the best among the 3 great families. It won't take long to find the real Philo. Cloya smiled slightly. Lord Diello, I believe in your potential. The quill was put down heavily, making a crisp sound. Diello's fingers tapped on the desk, making a deal with the enemy. Diello recalled Cloya's figure. She felt completely different this time. Diello's fingertip traced the wax seal of the envelope. Is this her hidden, true self? Diello broke the seal and pulled out the letter. The letter read, to the esteemed Duke Diello, Agenta. Transfer 50 of the income from Agenta's main mines and farmlands to the Araz family as living expenses for Duchess Cloya. Diello continued reading the letter. Also, station 100 Araz knights at the Tila Pass. That is a strategic point between Agenta and Araz. Monsters have been rampant there recently. He not only wants living expenses for Cloya, but also wants to take the opportunity to occupy a strategic location. At the end of the letter, it was written, finally, allow Cloya to visit the Araz family at least once a month. I can't bear to send my beautiful daughter away just like that. Diello put down the letter and sighed softly. A beautiful daughter. His eyes turned cold. A daughter sent to the enemy camp as a sacrifice. Diello picked up his quill and wrote a reply on the letter. Then he folded the paper and put it in an envelope. Diello called for Pierre. Pierre bowed in response. Yes, master. Diello gave his order. From now on, you will personally serve the future Duchess. One more thing. Give the Araz family whatever they want. Diello picked up a red gift box, a cold smile on his lips. A huge structure was being built for the wedding. Cloya stood on high, looking down at the construction of the wedding venue. Workers were hammering away. This scene is extravagantly insane. Pierre presented jewelry to Cloya. Lady Cloya, you will be the center of attention at tonight's banquet. Pierre continued. It's been a long time since the 3 great families had an intermarriage. What's more, everyone thinks you're getting married because you fell in love. Cloya responded softly. Yes. Cloya looked at Pierre beside her. And it has to be this way. Everyone thinks we fell in love after a sweet romance and are getting married. Right, Pierre? Pierre remained silent, just smiling quietly. Pierre, the head butler of the Agena family, and also a high-level agent, a cleaner. His mission is to eliminate any existence that threatens the Agena family. Cloya trembled slightly. I only read half of the original novel, but I remember one thing clearly. When Cloya, Araz's disguise, was exposed, Pierre was the one ordered to cut off her head. My agreement with Diello is top secret. If anyone knows, it must be Pierre. Chloe decided to test Pierre. Pierre was adjusting her attire. Yes, Lady Chloe Arras. Chloe asked, was it Duke Diello Aginta himself who assigned you to serve me? Pierre's hands didn't stop moving. Yes, of course, Pierre answered. He instructed me to assist you with everything from tonight's banquet until after the wedding. So Diello really did involve him. But this also means he sent him to protect me. Chloe showed a relaxed smile. I see. Then I'll be in your care from now on. Pierre returned a smile. Likewise, Lady Chloe Arras. Although he was smiling, he remained highly vigilant. I'm not here to deceive anyone, but this is really nerve-wracking. Chloe took a deep breath, turned, and walked to the balcony. Before her was an infinite sea. Chloe asked, this is the infinite sea, right? Pierre looked at Chloe. Yes. You've never seen it before, have you? This infinite sea is protected by the fire family, Aginta. The water family, Arras, guards the endless forest. The wind family, Cattle, defends the barren desert. These territories are divided by an ancient oath. Pierre looked at Chloe's back. Compared to Arras' endless forest, what do you think? Chloe had turned around, her face beaming with a brilliant smile. It's beautiful. The sea breeze caressed her face. The water sparkled. Pierre continued, I heard that the people of Arras are all tired of looking at water. It seems you're not like that. Chloe asked in return, I can control water. How could I get tired of it? Pierre had a realization. Oh, right. The Arras family has the ability to control water. But the Chloe Arras in the book could barely use her power. Chloe looked at the wine glass. Let me try. She extended her hand, her fingertip aimed at the wine glass. A faint light flickered. The liquid in the glass shot out abruptly, gathering in the air. Chloe watched in astonishment. What's happening? The liquid formed into a leaping golden dolphin, circling in the air. The dolphin gracefully traced an arc before diving back into the glass, splashing with a brilliant light. This is much smoother than described in the original novel. No, this is far beyond just smooth. It's as natural as breathing. Pierre's voice sounded. Lady Chloe Arras, it's time to go to the banquet hall. Pierre gave Chloe a final touch-up. Let's finish up. Chloe nodded slightly. All right. She walked alone towards a magnificent hall. Her footsteps echoed in the empty corridor, lonely and clear. Chloe stood in the center of the hall, enveloped in light. The union of Aginta and Arras will shake the entire empire. Chloe picked up the veil and gently placed it on her head. I will perfectly play the part of a wife madly in love. Even Duke Arras himself will never suspect a thing. The Empire's proposal ceremony is unique. The bride-to-be must cover her face with a pure white veil. Chloe stood at the end of the long corridor. Duke Diello, an announcer's voice declared. Miss Chloe Arras. Another voice echoed. Chloe started walking. The heels of her shoes clicked on the marble floor, step by step, towards Diello. Chloe stopped in front of Diello. You know, today we have to act like the sweetest couple, right? Chloe smiled through her veil. Are you confident? Diello's fingertips lightly touched his lower lip. Chloe observed Diello. His reaction was exactly the same as in the original story. This innocent man can't even tell a lie. He was always being played by Chloe Arras. But he can't be like that today. The last thing I need is for Duke Arras to say, I can't even handle my own husband. There's no other way. Diello made up his mind. He reached out to lift Chloe's veil. Chloe smiled through her veil. Then promise me one thing. Her voice carried a hint of command. I'll take the lead. You just need to follow. The second custom of the Empire's proposal ceremony. The bride-to-be does not enter with the groom-to-be. From the ducal house of Arras, the announcer declared loudly, Miss Chloe Arras. Chloe entered under the gazes of the guests. Her footsteps echoed in the hall. The guests whispered among themselves. The Aginta family and the Arras family are actually having a marriage alliance? Who would have thought? A female guest lowered her voice. My goodness, you don't know yet? Chloe walked with a blank expression, hearing every single word clearly. The guest's chatter continued. I wonder what the Cattle family thinks about this. Shoo, be quiet, another guest added. But Cattle has Lord Hyatt as its head now. There shouldn't be any problem, right? Chloe's eyes flickered. Is that so? The Cattle family, the Wind family, entered a golden age because of its head, Hyatt, hailed as one of the strongest of the three great families in history. Hyatt raised his glass among the nobles, his expression composed. The power inherited by the family is proportional to the strength of its head. As long as Hyatt is in power, most monsters don't even dare to approach his territory. But two of the Empire's three great ducal houses have now joined forces through marriage. Cattle's position has become ambiguous. The guest's worries were not unfounded. Duke Diello enters. The announcer's voice rang through the hall. Diello, dressed in a white formal suit, walked slowly into the venue. A female guest gasped. Goodness. Another guest whispered. Duke Aginta has grown up so much. I almost didn't recognize him. Cloya smiled through her veil. Diello. Cloya walked towards Diello, her high heels clicking crisply on the floor. Diello watched Cloya approach and called her name softly. Cloya. Cloya stopped in front of Diello. Yes, Lord Duke Aginta. This is the third custom of the Empire's proposal ceremony. The only person who can lift the bride's veil. Diello reached out and gently lifted Cloya's veil. That is the man who will become her husband. Cloya's face was revealed. Diello's breath caught for a moment. Cloya's heart skipped a beat. I know this is just an act, but my heart is a little flustered. Diello gazed at Cloya, his heartbeat accelerating as well. Please be my bride, Cloya. Araz. Diello cupped Cloya's face with both hands. The veil slid off gently. Diello leaned in, their lips about to meet. Diello's lips gently touched Cloya's. Cloya's body stiffened instantly. Cloya's eyes widened. Diello straightened up, smiling as he gazed at Cloya. You're not interested in me. Cloya said, I can't take your first kiss. Diello's arm tightened abruptly. He pulled Cloya into his embrace. Don't think of this as your first kiss. Cloya was stunned. Diello's voice sounded in her ear. I'm completely fine with it. Diello's arm tightened even more. So, Diello lowered his head again. This time like a real couple. Diello held Cloya steady. A collective gasp came from the guests. Cloya whispered, a little more passionately. Cloya deepened the kiss. Love me. Cloya's arms wrapped around Diello's neck, their bodies pressing close. Diello's cheeks flushed, his breathing quickening. Cloya's fingers tangled in Diello's hair. The guests watched from a distance. The two kissed under the holy light, like a painting. Diello pulled back slightly. Like this? Cloya's hand caressed Diello. I told you earlier to follow my lead. Her voice held an unquestionable power. Then do it completely my way. Be bolder. Cloya kissed Diello again, this time leaving no space between them. Her fingers tightened. More. Diello's arm wrapped around Cloya's waist, pressing her whole body against his. Under the veil, they kissed passionately, as if the world contained only their breaths. Diello held Cloya tightly. The two kissed in the light and dust, the scene frozen in eternity. A female guest half covered her face with a fan. My goodness, the watching nobles whispered. Two families that have been at odds for so long. How could they become the most watched couple in high society overnight? Another female guest turned her head. People's hearts are truly unpredictable. Her companion agreed. Yes, you're right. Their gazes returned to the beautiful couple. The two of them are so beautiful. Diello and Cloya embraced affectionately, light and shadow intertwining, like a scroll painting. The setting sun dyed the sky red. Diello stood before the greenhouse window, his shadow elongated by the light. A knock came from the door. A subordinate reported, Duke Diello. Diello turned his head. Come in. The door opened slowly. A blond man walked into the room. Just as you expected, your appearance today has caused quite a stir in high society. Diello smiled. It's probably thanks to that young lady's passion. The blond man turned to Diello. Miss Cloya Araz is also receiving a lot of attention, but most of the talk is about you, Your Grace, because you showed a different side than before. Diello's eyes darkened slightly. Of course, that would be the reaction. Memories of people's shocked expression surfaced. They only remember how timid I used to be. Diello lowered his eyelids. So, they must think we're a good match today, right? The man nodded. Of course. People are all saying you're a sweet couple. Diello turned away. Good. The more rumors, the better. Fan the flames carefully. Just don't let us get caught in it. Cassius. The man bowed and accepted the order. Understood. I will pass the word to Aginta. The door closed softly. Diello stood alone, his fingertips brushing over his lower lip. Cloya's voice echoed in his mind. It's okay, go deeper. Deeper than now. Try to love me. Diello's thoughts drifted into memory. Cloya's face appeared. The two embraced in a hazy glow. Diello's fingers gently caressed her neck. Cloya tilted her face up, her lips slightly parted, her eyes hazy. Diello leaned down to kiss her. Fragments of memory flashed. Cloya Araz. Diello snapped back to reality, his fingertips tracing his own lips. His heart skipped a beat. Diello's fingertips touched his chin. So I'm not the only one acting. The past Cloya Araz was just a disguise. Her real face is In his memory, Chloe Araz, wearing a wedding dress, lifted a corner of her veil, her gaze confident and firm. I will lead everything. You just need to follow me. Diello's eyes were deep. Chloe Araz showed her true self in front of me. Diello concluded, this means she's betting everything. Diello looked out the window. It's either go all in or lose everything. Servants were cleaning the courtyard. They were talking in the courtyard. Chloe watched them. The servants are so excited. This is very unusual. Are they this happy just because their master is getting married? Pierre wiped Chloe's back. It's strange that everyone seems to be in a good mood. Chloe was immersed in a shower of flower petals. It's not like they don't know how difficult I am to get along with. Seeing everyone happy about the engagement doesn't feel bad. The news of the engagement spread quickly throughout all of Aginta. The Aginta Frontline. This title is only given to those who are closely connected to the family and have never betrayed it. This means that everyone in the ducal house of Aginta now knows about our marriage. Pierre smiled with his head lowered. Seeing you two together, they seem to have high hopes. Chloe let out a small laugh. Because we look like a sweet newlywed couple? Pierre en sourd affirmatively. Exactly. Pierre's hand lifted from the water. Water droplets fell. Then, Chloe turned her head to look at him. Pierre, what do you think? In the eyes of those who don't know, we might seem incredibly sweet, but I need to know what it looks like to those who aren't on it. The ones we need to deceive aren't just the nobles in high society. Duke Araz is among them. So from the perspective of someone to know, how did our engagement ceremony look? Pierre knelt beside Chloe, his hands folded, his expression solemn. Absolutely perfect, Pierre said in a low voice. Even I thought it seemed real. Chloe let out a soft breath, a flash of exhaustion in her eyes. Pierre's words didn't sound like a lie. The plan succeeded. Hurried footsteps sounded from far to near. The door was suddenly thrown open. A maid rushed in, her expression panicked. Emergency! The maid's voice trembled. The third district of the Infinite Sea has been breached. Chloe's expression turned grim. The third district of the Infinite Sea has been breached? What happened? Pierre bowed, accepted the order, and turned to leave. I will go investigate. A heavy door swung open. Chloe stepped into a magnificent hall. A maid hurried forward. Pierre asked about the situation. He asked first. Chloe grew suspicious. Had he already anticipated this? The maid averted her face. The defensive line at the endless sea has collapsed. Pierre's pupille constricted. Completely collapsed? The maid bowed slightly. That's not quite the case. Chloe straightened upon hearing this. Chloe crossed her arms, her gaze firm. Even if it's a contract marriage, I will become the mistress here. There's no reason to back down. 2 troops of demonic beasts attacked the 3rd district. The number of the first troop far exceeded previous ones. The on-site commander, Roa, naturally used the main force to deal with the large troop. But the maid continued to report. The second wave of demonic beasts was also enormous. The defense line collapsed in an instant. Pierre rested his chin on his hand. The number of demonic beasts far exceeded the garrison. According to the knights present, it seems multiple herds of demonic beasts have joined forces. Multiple herds? Chloe's brow furrowed slightly. I remember now. The demonic beasts near the endless sea were acting abnormally, but the book didn't describe it in detail. Chloe looked around. How could a maid be so clear about the battle situation? This kind of thing wouldn't be reported to a maid. In the hall, knights and servants were whispering to each other, all talking about the same thing. The clamor echoed in the hall. Chloe rested her chin on her hand. Was the last line of defense held? Have reinforcements arrived? The maid replied. The sinner, Roa, took full responsibility and charged into the horde of demonic beasts. During his charge, the defense line was re-established. Reinforcements are on the way. Chloe's gaze hardened. Sinner? Pierre ordered. Good. Write an emergency report immediately. The maid accepted the order. As you command. Why is he called a sinner? Chloe was displeased. He sacrificed himself to take responsibility. Isn't that a respectable act? The maid remained silent. Chloe's displeasure didn't lessen. People not only didn't praise Roa, but instead saw it as what he deserved. Pierre explained. To be frank, he failed to fulfill his duty. However, if Roa hadn't bought time with his life, he would have faced severe punishment under military law. Pierre's eyes were cold. You may have never seen this in Araz, so you find it strange. You ask why he is a sinner. In Aginta, we follow an absolute code of conduct. Upon hearing this, a jolt went through Chloe. Pierre's words echoed in her ears. Either do it or give up. I've heard it. No, I've seen this phrase. Chloe's memories surged. It was an open book, writ on the flyleaf. That was the first description of Aginta in the original novel. Either do it or give up. This is a place where failure means death. Even if you do your duty, you will only die as a sinner. A blood-soaked chess piece shatters. Those who swear allegiance to the head of the family can receive the family's power. The strength of that power depends on the family head himself. Among the Agenta bloodline, Dielo's power is the strongest. Flames burn around him, reflecting his cold face. Even without Philo, Dielo's power is enough to overwhelm everything. Roa used this to go berserk and hold back the torrent of demonic beasts. So even if he gave his life, if he failed to succeed completely, it was no different from standing by and doing nothing. Chloe clutched the fabric over her chest. Pierre smiled. You catch on quickly. Dielo is deliberately showing weakness. This might just be one part of his long-term plan. Agenta's merciless code also played a part. He's gentle by nature, so he must be in even more pain. Dielo. In Chloe's mind, Dielo's gentle, smiling face appeared. The image vanished in an instant. The sound of breathing echoed in the silence. Dielo sat at his desk, looking through documents. Roa borrowed the power of Agenta, went berserk, and died. Dielo asked, what about the body? It can be retrieved. Dielo ordered, bury him before the endless sea. The attendant accepted the order. As you command. The attendant added, Lady Chloe Araz also received the news. And then, she asked why Roa was a sinner. The attendant reported truthfully. Dielo listened quietly. The attendant continued, and she seemed very surprised. Dielo's eyes twitched slightly. Dielo waved his hand. That's all. You may leave. The attendant bowed. He turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. Dielo leaned back in his ornate chair. The 3rd District needs a new commander. Dielo's fingers tapped lightly on the documents. Dielo's gaze was lowered, lost in thought. He let out a soft laugh. What should I do about that priestess? Chloe sat by the window. The wedding is just around the corner. How did it get so soon? A knock came from the door. Lady Chloe Araz. May I come in? Chloe turned her head. Ah, come in, Pierre. Pierre entered. Excuse the intrusion. Have you finished your tea? Chloe answered. Pierre pushed in a cart piled high with documents. What is this? Pierre explained. These are documents related to projects led by Agenta. The scale is enormous, so it will take some time to review them. Chloe looked aghast. What, all of them? Chloe quickly said, wait. Pierre, I'm just a stand-in. Is it really okay for me to know Agenta's internal affairs? Pierre didn't hesitate. You must know. Please allow me to clear the table. The mistress of a noble house is not only responsible for information in social circles, but also for managing the family's image and internal affairs. Pierre's gaze was firm. Therefore, Lady Chloe Araz, you need to understand all of Agenta's project to fulfill your duties as the mistress. All projects, including the underground operations? Chloe's heart jolted. This means they'll give me all their information, whether it's clean or not. Even the family's darkest secrets. Chloe looked at Pierre. Are you sure it's okay to teach me these things? Pierre bowed slightly. Is the master's will? Chloe confirmed. You mean this is Dielo's will? Dielo hasn't forgotten I'm a fake, has he? Chloe slumped in her chair. He knows I have to leave when the real one shows up, right? This man is too good. Just how much does he trust me? Chloe grabbed Pierre's hand. Pierre, you don't object? Pierre smiled and replied, of course. I completely agree. Chloe looked bewildered. Huh? Pierre turned. Then, let's start with the projects in the Southern District. Chloe panicked. Pierre, wait. This feels like a scam. A complete and utter fraud. Crowds flocked to the ceremonial hall to witness a historic moment. Guest carriages drove in. People gathered in front of the magnificent white building. A low murmur filled the air. A guest looked up at the dome. I heard this building was constructed just for the wedding. Another guest nodded in agreement. Looking forward to this grand wedding, an attendant adjusted the groom's attire. He wore a splendid white uniform. Duke Dielo. He put on his white gloves, his gaze calm and resolute. Dielo turned. A guest walked up. Duke Araz. Araz showed a polite smile. It seems the preparations went smoothly. Please take good care of my daughter. Araz lightly patted Dielo's shoulder. She has many flaws. Dielo lowered his eyes. Of course. Araz continued. Since the marriage alliance is settled, let us set aside our old grudges. Please welcome my daughter as your wife. Dielo looked straight at him. Of course. Don't worry too much. Araz turned to leave. Then, I'll see you later. Dielo watched him go. Yes, see you later. Dielo's smile vanished instantly, leaving only a cold stare. A guest whispered, it's about to start. Another guest added, I can't wait to see them. Duke Araz has arrived. Araz walked over, surrounded by a group of people. The guests hurried forward. A guest bowed. Congratulations, Duke Araz. You've arranged a wonderful match. Another guest was all smiles. What a joyous occasion. Araz greeted the guests. Thank you all for your attention. Please excuse me for a moment. A guest sat down. Please go ahead. Araz raised his hand. A stream of water appeared out of thin air, swirling around his fingertips. The guests gasped in amazement. My goodness, that water. As expected of the water family, the stream of water flowed into the courtyard's waterway, creating sparkling ripples. A guest stared at the water surface. Look, even the sparks reflected in the waterway are so beautiful. Everything is ready, just waiting for the couple to appear. The officiant announced loudly, the bride and groom will now enter. Leather shoes stepped onto the white floor, making a crisp sound. Diello stood still, his gaze serene. Wedding shoes tapped lightly on the ground. Chloe, in a white wedding dress, had a calm expression. She clutched a bouquet in both hands, walking towards the altar. Chloe's back was resolute as she walked towards the waiting Diello. The two stood side by side under the sacred hall. Chloe glanced sideways. Araz lowered his head to hide the smile on his lips. There was a hint of mockery in that smile. Chloe observed the guests' expressions. It seems Diello's and my plan hasn't been exposed yet. Chloe's gaze swept over the guest seats. The family seats, as expected, were empty. Chloe's thoughts sank into darkness. According to the plot of the original novel, Duke Araz should have already killed them. Diello. Chloe looked at Diello. Does he know that Duke Araz is the culprit? Chloe turned slightly, gazing at Diello's profile. No matter how you look at it, he doesn't seem to know. If he knew, he would never marry the daughter of his family's killer. Poor man. Diello, I will help you kill Duke Araz again, even if my power is meager. The officiant's voice rang out solemnly. And so, we now begin the wedding of Duke Diello Aginta and Miss Chloe Araz. The two walked towards the officiant. He announced, here, these two will be united as one. Chloe took Diello's arm. The officiant continued, now, the couple, joined in matrimony, please exchange a vows kiss. Streams of water rose around them, forming arches. Chloe and Diello stood facing each other. Diello slowly leaned in. Diello's face drew near. Water droplets condensed on the tips of his hair. A flash of surprise passed through his eyes. Oh, that's... Chloe's thoughts raced. The Aginta family's crest, hidden until now. It's preventing the family head's power from awakening. If the real Philo erases that lily, the family head's power will soar. But if it's plucked by someone other than Philo, the family head's power will stagnate. Diello, and I must protect it. Diello gently caressed Chloe's cheek. He whispered, my lovely bride. Chloe's pupils constricted. Diello leaned down and pulled Chloe into his arms. Under the gaze of the guests, he kissed her lips. A calculating glint passed through Diello's eyes. Should I act a little sweeter? Their lips met. Chloe closed her eyes. Of course, a voice sounded in Diello's mind. Then this time, I'll take the lead. The guests let out gasps of admiration. My goodness, how beautiful. Diello's inner monologue surfaced. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you for marrying me. Diello swept Chloe up into his arms, surrounded by sunlight and flower petals. He gazed at her, his eyes gentle. The sun cast long shadows behind them. Chloe's cheeks flushed. The plan is a great success. In front of the mansion, a magnificent carriage waited. The servants lined up to see them off. Chloe snuggled in Diello's arms. Diello announced, well then, we'll depart now. Araz smiled. Have a wonderful honeymoon. With Diello's help, Chloe boarded the carriage. Inside, Diello ordered the coachman, let's go. The coachman complied. As you command. Hoofbeats sounded as the wheels began to turn. Araz watched the carriage depart. We should be going as well. Silence filled the carriage. Diello spoke softly. The wedding seemed to go smoothly. Chloe replied, right? It was a complete success. Chloe gazed at him. Now we just need to keep Diello's purity intact. Diello covered his mouth with one hand. This is too embarrassing. Chloe took the initiative to hold Diello's hand, their fingers intertwining. Chloe's voice was gentle but firm. At night, I'll sleep holding your hand. Chloe walked in the garden. It seems the Aginta family is really rich. They built an entire building just for the wedding. She marveled. And now they've built a villa for the honeymoon. Diello stood beside Chloe. Do you like it? Chloe looked up at him. Yes, it's really wonderful. Diello smiled. You like the view from upstairs even more. The table and chairs on the balcony bathed in sunlight, waiting for their owners. Chloe's eyes lit up. Really? I want to go right now, Diello. Diello took Chloe's hand. All right, let's go now. Chloe hugged Diello tightly. Two maids watched silently, at a loss for words. The view from the top of the villa was magnificent, blending seamlessly with the forest. Chloe smiled and asked, "This is the border between Aginta and Araz, right?" Diello looked down and confirmed, "Yes, that's right." Diello kissed Chloe's forehead. Chloe closed her eyes, enjoying it. "Tomorrow morning, we'll have a quiet meal here." Diello said, "All right, I'll have them prepare it that way." The two maids exchanged a look. A maid reported to Chloe, "Madam, all the luggage has been unpacked." Chloe waved her hand. "Thank you for your hard work." Chloe's thoughts raced. Among the people who followed us, there are maids sent by Araz. They're Araz puppets, sent to watch us. Diello softly suggested, "Since the luggage is unpacked, how about we rest a bit and then take a walk around the estate?" Chloe's eyes lit up. "That sounds good. We need to show them that we're completely lost in love." Night fell. The moonlight was bright. The villa's main doors were shut tight, blocking out any prying eyes from the outside. Chloe pressed her hand to her forehead. Being watched all day is so tiring. Their gazes are undeniably piercing. Chloe walked towards Diello, who was sitting on the sofa. Diello picked up a wine bottle and poured red wine into a glass. Diello handed the glass to Chloe, a slight smile on his lips. Chloe took the glass and parted her red lips. The two raised their glasses, which clinked softly. Chloe took a small sip. The wine was sweet and fragrant. "Can I have another glass?" Diello picked up the bottle and refilled her glass. Of course. Chloe's cheeks were slightly flushed. "Shall we have one more?" Diello picked up the empty bottle. Unfortunately, that was the last one. Chloe's smile froze. Diello put down the bottle. "Well then, I think it's time to call a night." Diello stood up and walked step by step towards Chloe. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hand resting lightly on the sheet. "Come here." Chloe sat on the other end of the bed, silent. The two lay in the center of the bed. Chloe's gaze drifted. "The real Philo will arrive in 2 months. If I state the exact time of her arrival, it will arouse suspicion. So I vaguely mentioned the contract period is 1 year. In 2 months, I'll have to leave this place." Chloe lay beside Diello. Chloe's hand gently caressed him. In Diello's pupils, Chloe's reflection was mirrored. "Is there something strange about my eyes?" Chloe answered, "No, they're just beautiful. Your eyes are very pretty, like the sea. Even if we're not a real couple, I can still say you're beautiful, right?" Diello's gaze drifted into the distance. "But the real sea is deeper and darker than this." Chloe said, from a distance, "Isn't this the color of the sea?" Diello said, "The sea from a distance." "You're right." Chloe lay on her side, gently caressing Diello's cheek. "This honeymoon is really nice. So peaceful and warm." Diello replied, "I'm glad you're satisfied, Miss Chloe." Chloe sat up. "Miss Chloe? I'm not a miss anymore. To look like a real couple, we have to seem closer, right? So let's practice. Call me by my name." Diello was silent for a moment. "Chloe, Araz." Chloe frowned. "Why at Araz? It sounds so distant." Diello tried softly, "Chloe." A success. Diello's cheeks flushed as he called out softly, "Chloe." Chloe nodded in satisfaction. "Perfect. You passed. As I promised, I won't take your purity. But to deceive the spies, we have to spend the night together like this." 3 maids stood guard outside the door, their expressions stern. Diello replied, "It can't be helped." Chloe sat up. "Ah, but I have a request." Diello looked at her. "What request?" Chloe leaned close to Diello and whispered in his ear. Diello's pupils contracted sharply. "Unbelievable. Are you sure, Chloe?" Chloe's gaze was firm. "Yes, I have to do this. They say there's a proverb in Aginta, either don't do it, or do it." Chloe looked straight at him. "So, since we're doing it, let's do it thoroughly." Diello's gaze was deep as he stared at Chloe. "All right." In the moonlight, Diello leaned down and embraced Chloe. Chloe let out a soft gasp, her body trembling slightly. Sunlight filtered through the green leaves, dappling a white gazebo. Pierre poured tea for Chloe. The aroma of tea filled the air. Pierre smiled and said, "This is a lightly brewed laurel tea. It can help relieve your fatigue." Chloe raised her gaze slightly. "Thank you. Send some to Diello as well. He should be working in his office. He must be tired from work." Pierre lowered his hands and replied, "Yes, madam." Chloe lifted her teacup and closed her eyes. "Finally, those annoying Araz retainers will be leaving today. I can finally breathe. Just have to endure a little longer." Chloe let out a long breath, her body completely relaxing. Chloe's brow twitched. Is that a child crying?" The sound of a boy's sobbing came from a distance. He was hiding behind a pillar, tears streaming down his cheeks. The boy suddenly rushed out and ran towards Chloe. Pierre quickly stepped forward to block the boy. Chloe is not someone you can approach so carelessly. Pierre looked down sternly at the boy. "Who are you?" The boy went around Pierre and threw himself at Chloe. Please help me. Pierre looked at Chloe. Madam, what should we do? Chloe was silent for a moment, her gaze softening. She held out her hand. Come here. Chloe asked softly, Little one, why are you crying? The boy looked up at Chloe. Mama, I can't find my mama. Tears welled up again. Chloe cupped the boy's face. Your mama? The boy sobbed. She came with me, but Chloe turned to Pierre. Did any of the servants bring a child? Pierre replied, No, madam. None of the Aegina staff brought one. The boy suddenly threw himself into Chloe's arms, crying his heart out. Mama. Chloe gently patted the boy's back. Little one, don't cry. You were just frightened, but this is against the rules. I'll take the child to find his mother. Pierre looked worried. Madam, your safety is paramount. Chloe's gaze was firm. It's fine. I trust both the Araz and Aegina families. Of course, because neither side has a reason to harm me. And what can a child do? Chloe took the boy's hand. Pierre, I'm entrusting this matter to you. Don't tell anyone, just in case. Pierre's expression was grave. Understood, but just in case, I'll send someone. The boy started crying loudly again, interrupting Pierre. This child seems very shy around strangers. Chloe smiled and waved at Pierre. I'll go by myself. Pierre segued. Chloe took the boy's hand and walked across a stone bridge. Passing through an archway, Chloe asked gently, Are you a little calmer now? The boy walked silently, holding her hand through the shadows. He suddenly raised his arm and pointed towards a dark alley. Chloe looked in the direction he was pointing. Did you find your mom? The boy's finger pointed firmly into the darkness. Chloe's eyes sharpened instantly. She finally realized something was wrong. I thought it was strange. The security is so tight, yet he wasn't intimidated at all. The way he clung to me was also very suspicious. So that's what this is. Chloe looked down at the boy, her eyes cold. A child sent to harm me. It's not impossible, but honestly, I'm not worried at all. Pierre is definitely following behind. The boy revealed his wrist. Lady Chloe Araz. Chloe looked at the boy. So you really are one of Araz's watchdogs? The boy asked, Did you spend the night with Duke Aegina last night? Chloe answered, Of course. Then show me the proof. The boy continued. What? Just prove that you spent the night with Duke Aegina. Chloe unfastened her clothes. Thank goodness I asked Diello yesterday. Chloe's cheeks flushed instantly. Why am I thinking about this now of all times? This isn't the time to think about that. I need to calm down and deal with the situation at hand first. Chloe looked down, showing the mark. Is this enough? The boy's gaze fell on her collarbone. Yes, I've confirmed it. Just then, a maid's call came from the distance. Hey! The boy immediately turned, his face breaking into a smile. I found my mama. Chloe looked towards the voice. A maid was waving in their direction. The boy's mother had appeared. Just as expected, Chloe looked at the maid. I knew they would send someone to confirm, but I didn't expect it to be in this way. In the original novel, the Araz family never confirmed it. The wedding night plot. No, from the beginning, the original novel focused on Chloe. Chloe decided to deceive Diello and ended up spending the night with him. Chloe's fingers unconsciously went to her collarbone. Diello's lips had landed on Chloe's neck. Chloe had asked softly, Diello, is the mark obvious? Diello's cheeks were slightly red. He had lifted his head, his fingertips gently caressing Chloe's collarbone. The mark is still there. Chloe came back to her senses. I don't know why I'm remembering this now. Why is that man so good to me? Chloe covered her burning face with both hands, overcome with shyness. Sunlight filtered through the branches, falling on a magnificent estate. On the lawn, Chloe was surrounded by a group of maids. Diello watched quietly from the window, silent. Among the maids, Chloe's smile was like a blooming flower. Diello's gaze suddenly sharpened. Chloe's expression turned serious again. I need to be prepared for any surprises, so I have a request. Diello turned around. How did he predict that Araz would send someone? Was it because he knew Duke Araz too well, or because Chloe was still Araz's person? Diello's fingers tapped lightly, his gaze falling on Chloe in the distance. Aegina's defenses are impregnable. Diello's hand traced an invisible barrier on the window pane. Beyond the high walls is an indestructible rampart. Within the walls are strong shields and support. Chloe, Araz, because I cannot yet fully trust you, I will place you under Aegina's protection. If you are still loyal to Araz, you will need to deceive us completely. But if you are sincere about joining forces with Aegina, I want you to propose a contract to me, that the marriage is genuine. That night, the moonlight was cold, blanketing the magnificent mansion. Chloe Araz sighed softly. No matter how I think about it, asking him for proof is too much. What kind of proof does he want? Besides, he appeared disguised as a child with a magician. A knock sounded at the door. Chloe tensed. The door opened halfway, and Diello leaned in. Chloe, may I come in? Chloe looked at Diello, entering the newlyweds' room so cautiously. Of course. Diello said, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, and sorry for going straight to the main building for an urgent matter. The two sat side by side on the edge of the bed. Chloe said softly, it's all right. Since it was urgent, Araz won't be suspicious. Chloe tilted her head. But for someone like me who isn't familiar with Agenda yet, running to the office is indeed a bit strange, especially since I kept looking over there. Diello looked at Chloe, like an anxious bride waiting for her husband's return. The way he looked at me was like looking at a sad bride. Chloe clasped her hands, sitting on a chair on the balcony and gazing into the distance. Diello leaned against the headboard. But I never came down. That would make me look like a bad husband. But Duke Araz shouldn't think that we're on bad terms, right? Chloe raised her eyes. Oh, speaking of Duke Araz, Diello responded, He checked the traces left from yesterday. The Duke checked them himself. Diello covered his mouth. Chloe said in horror, what? That's disgusting. It really wasn't him. It was someone else. Diello breathed a sigh of relief. I almost misunderstood Duke Araz. Anyway, he's the enemy. A misunderstanding doesn't matter. Regardless, thanks to that, we've overcome the first crisis. The first crisis. Chloe's gaze lowered. That lily crest. Diello's eyes were calm. The Duke is just waiting for me to get rid of him. On Diello's collarbone, a lily crest glowed faintly. The more Diello gives his true heart, the fainter that mark will become. Right now, it's perfectly clear. Until the real Philo appears, the mark will not fade again. Diello touched the mark, so that's how it is. Chloe promised softly, don't worry. It will stay this way until the real Philo appears. Their eyes met. Chloe's hand gently caressed Diello's chest. But there's one thing that must be made clear. The candlelight flickered. Diello asked, what is it? Chloe's gaze lowered. Agenta, who knows our secret? I'm sure Pierre knows. Chloe chuckled lightly. I'm not that dense. It would be too troublesome if Diello worked with someone that slow, wouldn't it? Diello replied, you're right. Pierre does know. Chloe said, then tell me. In Agenta, who can I trust without reservation? Diello's tone was gentle. Don't worry, Chloe. The Agenta people who can come to the 4th floor are all trustworthy. You don't need to be so guarded. Chloe was taken aback. You mean all the Agenta people who come to the 4th floor know? Diello smiled. Yes, you really don't have to worry. Is it really okay to be this naive? Diello opened his palm, and a ball of fire ignited out of thin air, especially those with special abilities who can enter this floor. Diello closed his hand around the flame. You could trust them completely. They are true Agenda people. True Agenda people know full well how foolish betrayal is. Diello extinguished the flame, but they also know that if it succeeds, but it's called justice. Chloe listened quietly. Diello continued, I understand your concern, Chloe. Once you get to know the people of Agenta better, your opinion will change. Diello raised his hand. The candlelight flickered. Good night, Chloe. Chloe responded softly, good night. The next day was bright and sunny. Chloe was in the study. Pierre, what is this? Pierre handed her a document, a servant's termination contract. He will be going to another household. This is to ensure that those who leave Agenta will never reveal the family secrets. Madam, please have the departing servant sign this. Chloe looked at the contract. A contract signed in the name of the head of the house must be important. Even though I married Diello, is it really okay to show this to someone bound by contract? Pierre Bouet, the person who needs to sign, is waiting. Shall I bring him in? Chloe was about to agree. Wait. Chloe raised her hand to stop him. Wait, Pierre. Chloe read the contract carefully. Once an Agenta signs this contract, he will renounce the Agenta name and never speak of it again. If he violates it, the fire of the head of the house will burn everything he has. Diello Agenta, the fire of the head of the house. He does it himself. Chloe's expression was grave. Pierre, is this kind of contract common? Pierre replied calmly, not common, but not unheard of either. And I have rarely seen anyone violate it. Chloe folded her hands over the contract. This is an Agenda tradition, right? Pierre answered yes. The gentle Diello burning someone to death with his own hands. It feels strange. Chloe's eyes were firm. I understand. Let's go. Pierre Bouet. Yes, madam. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Pierre led the way. Chloe followed behind, her steps steady. Pierre turned sideways and gestured. This way, please. Pierre pushed open a magnificent door. Inside, a strange man was sitting on a sofa. The strange man stood up and smiled. Good day, madam. It's an honor to meet you. I am Mirda. So this is the servant I'm supposed to sign the contract with. Mirda. Pierre presented a tray. Cloya looked at the items on the tray. A quill and a dagger. Cloya picked up the dagger. But there's no ink. How am I supposed to write? Pierre spoke calmly. Mirda, you know how to sign the contract, don't you? On the tray were a quill, a dagger, and a pen with no ink. The method Pierre mentioned must be. Cloya folded her hands and stood quietly to the side, her gaze falling on the table. Mirda handed over a document. He wore a smile. I didn't expect to be the one writing this contract. He held the document, his expression composed. Pierre took the dagger. Let's begin. Mirda spoke. All right. He fell silent for a moment, then drew the dagger and stabbed his hand. Cloya's pupils contracted. Mirda held the quill, its tip gliding across the parchment. With blood as ink, the words of the contract snaked into form. Cloya watched this scene, feeling nothing inside. That must hurt. Mirda put down the quill. The contract is complete, madam. Cloya nodded slightly. Well done. Pierre turned. Mirda, although I trust this won't happen. He picked up a human-shaped piece of paper from the tray. If you break your oath. The paper ignited into flames at his fingertips. Mirda and Cloya watched quietly. In the flames, the figure of Pierre appeared. He was entwined in thorns, his eyes vacant. That you will return here. Mirda, remember your oath. Mirda closed his eyes. A moment of silence. I will keep it in mind. Mirda bowed. Thank you for coming, madam. It was my honor to see you, even for just a brief moment. Cloya asked, but why is Mirda leaving? Mirda replied, his parents are over there. They want to spend their final days there. Cloya nodded in understanding. I see. Cloya placed a hand on her chest, smiling. Then, Mirda, I hope only good news comes from there. Goodbye. Mirda lowered his eyes. Thank you. Pierre turned and said, I will see you to the carriage and then return. Cloya waved her hand. All right. See him off well. The door closed softly. Cloya stood alone, lost in thought. This is clearly Agenta's family business. As an outsider, that I shouldn't interfere. Does Diello trust that Mirda won't betray him because of this contract? But what exactly is Mirda? Pierre and Cloya walked side by side down the long corridor. Mirda was originally the Duke's servant. If he served Diello, he must have been very fond of him. It must have been difficult for Diello to order him to write this contract. Diello sat behind his desk, his posture upright. Comin, Cloya entered the room. Your Highness, I brought Mirda's contract. The door was pushed open. Cloya walked into the room. Diello, I brought the magic contract. Diello's gaze froze for a moment. Cloya walked to Diello's desk. Did my arrival surprise you? Diello chuckled lightly. A little. You accepted it so quickly. Thank you, Cloya arose. Diello stood up, his gaze sincere. Cloya looked at Diello. Diello also had one. A dagger. Diello's eyes sharpened. He reached out, drew the dagger, and then stabbed his palm. A quill, its tip gleaming with blood. Diello held the quill and signed his name on the parchment. Intricate text appeared on the contract. It then burst into raging flames. The fire consumed the contract. Red chains materialized from thin air. Cloya looked up, the flames reflecting on her cheeks. Diello extended his hand. The flames and chains wrapped around his arm. A gut feeling. The contract has been made, Cloya said softly. That person was serving Diello until not long ago. Diello nodded. Yes. The lines of Diello's profile were stern. It's a pity. Cloya's thoughts drifted. Diello was honest. I was worried about traitors yesterday. But Diello also said the same thing. There will be no traitors. Cloya's gaze was firm. Betrayal is not easy. One needs to be certain of success. Since Mirda has released Diello before, there shouldn't be a problem. Diello gently caressed the back of her hand, a slight smile playing on his lips. I hope so. He held Cloya's hand. Thank you for your comfort, Cloya. Diello pressed the back of her hand to his lips. See you tonight. He looked up, his gaze gentle and deep. It's really like a honeymoon. Ripples spread through Cloya's heart. Cloya turned to leave. Then, take care, Diello. Diello's figure remained where he was. Documents were piled high on the desk. He picked up a document from the desk, his gaze sweeping over a knight kneeling on one knee. Liek turned. Should we pursue them? No, not Mirda. A flame ignited in Diello's hand. Go after those who were swayed by cattle. For now, they will be wary of Agenta. The moment they try to contact cattle, report it immediately. The flame danced on his fingertips. I will handle it personally. Liek raised his hand in a salute. Yes, I understand. I have already dispatched Liek. Mirda is now completely under Agenta surveillance. His every move will be closely monitored. Diello covered half his face with his hand. The certainty of success. Diello's lips curved up slightly. Cloya, you were right. Usually, no one betrays without being certain of success. He walked to the window, but the problem is they mistakenly believed in themselves. Diello stood by the window. My false marriage with Cloya has made the current situation very unstable. Now is the perfect time to root out the traitors. A carriage departed from the courtyard. The code of Aginta never forgives traitors. A knight burst into the room. Your Highness, an urgent report. Diello's expression was calm. Kumain, the knight, looked flustered. There's an anomaly in the 4th district of the Endless Sea. Diello turned his head. The 4th district? The knight bowed. Yes. Commander Radia's requests your departure. Diello's pupils constricted. Uncle himself? Diello gave the order. Take me to him at once. Cloya held a stack of documents. Diello has left his post for an urgent mission. Pierre stood by her side. Yes, this time the problem is in the 4th district. You mean the Endless Sea? Cloya was thoughtful. Is it because of the large-scale raid before? She looked out the window. The sun was bright, the sea calm. Diello may seem frail on the outside, but he is definitely an exceptionally capable leader. Cloya rested her chin on her hand, her brow slightly furrowed. But why does this feel so ominous? Cloya held a magnificent pen. This is rather unexpected. Pierre, did Diello leave without saying goodbye? Pierre's voice came from across the room. Yes, I heard he rushed to the scene without a moment's delay. Cloya responded. Is that so? Cloya put down her pen. This is the last document that needs to be signed. He will surely return safely. And here I thought I could have some peace and quiet. Cloya picked up a new document. Shadow recipient? Pierre, what is this document? The title was clearly visible. Additional tasks for this quarter's shadow recipients. Pierre explained. The shadows are people responsible for delivering supplies to the families of those who sacrifice themselves for Aginta. This quarter's recipients are the family of the sinner, Roa. The Duke ordered them to be given special care. Cloya's gaze froze. That man named Roa was the knight who sacrificed himself to protect the 4th district of the Endless Sea in the last battle. I originally thought the Duke was too cruel to him. It seems that wasn't the whole story. Pierre turned his back to Cloya. So much like Diello, Cloya asked curiously, by the way, what exactly do the families sponsored by the Shadows receive? Those families not only receive land and buildings under the Aginta name, but also lifelong financial support to ensure they live comfortably. Therefore, from the subjects of the territory to the main Aginta house, everyone holds extremely high loyalty. Cloya's fingertip lightly touched her lower lip. The benefits are quite substantial. Becoming one of Aginta's people is indeed very beneficial. So, what are the conditions to become one of them? A ball of fire ignited out of thin air in Pierre's hand. Pierre gazed at the flame. This is the manifestation of an ability. However, I've heard that the vassals of other families also have abilities that match their attributes. Is the Araz family also like this? Cloya answered yes. Most people who work for the Araz family can control water, but the atmosphere here is a bit different. First of all, not having an ability doesn't mean you can't work here, especially the shadow system. It seems to be a tradition unique to Aginta. I've also never heard of any magic contracts or shadow sponsorships. Cloya was thoughtful, so that's why the atmosphere here is so different from the other two families. Pierre smiled and nodded. It certainly is. A knock came from the door. Pierre answered, what is it? Kumain. Cloya was slightly surprised. Aginta, is someone really looking for me? A knight pushed the door open and entered, looking hurried. Forgive the intrusion, madam. The 4th district requests that you send reinforcements. Cloya looked astonished. What? Hasn't Diello already gone? Any more troops? The knight's tone was grave. Yes, this is a direct order from the Duke. Pierre's smile vanished instantly, his body stiffening. Cloya's pupils contracted sharply. That strange sense of déjà vu from before. Diello's only uncle. Radia's Aginta died in battle after losing control. It was this very incident. This marked the beginning of the crisis for Aginta and Diello. This tragedy occurred after Cloya and Diello's marriage, and before the real Philo arrived at this mansion. Cloya turned to the knight. What is the scale of the requested reinforcements? The knight replied, the Duke said the battle is more intense than expected. He needs enough troops to quickly bring the situation under control. Cloya sighed in relief. That's good then. No, they don't realize the situation is getting worse at all. The only reason an experienced commander like Radia's would die in battle, even with Diello's support. Cloya's hand clenched abruptly. That was something that had never happened in the entire history of Aginta. They never anticipated the appearance of a demonic beast that uses water magic. Radius was forced to burn his life force and went berserk. The 4th District was defended at the cost of Radius's life. But if I let things develop, the tragedy will play out just like in the original story. Radius Aginta is not only Diello's sole blood relative, but also the cornerstone of Aginta's military power. I absolutely cannot let him die. This isn't a whim. This is for my own future as well. Chloe stood up. Dispatch reinforcements immediately. The larger the force, the better. All right, only I know about the water monster's existence. I almost let slip. Chloe corrected herself. Regarding the scale of deployment, it's better to let the knights decide. The knight bowed his head. As you command. Chloe turned to face the knight and Pierre. However, also prepare an escort for me. Pierre and the knight were stunned at the same time. What? Chloe's lips curved up slightly. The battlefield is near a water source, and I am from the Araz family. Chloe elegantly lifted her teacup. The golden tea swirled in the cup. The tea suddenly leaped from the cup's rim, transforming into a golden stream of water. The golden stream met the clear water in the vase, instantly merging to form a larger column of water. The column of water spiraled upwards under Chloe's control, dancing in the air before finally turning into countless crystalline droplets. If Diello is there and still needs reinforcements, then the situation on site is likely far more serious than we imagine. Chloe smiled. Shouldn't someone from the water-controlling Araz family go? The knight bowed deeply. I will report this immediately after the meeting. Chloe responded calmly. Good. For Aginta. For Diello. Chloe's hand rested on the window frame. And for my own future. I must stop this tragedy. Diello stood firm before the roaring waves. A water monster revealed its form before him, stirring up a monstrous tsunami. I hate the sea. From a distance, the sparkling sea was once endlessly beautiful. But the creatures of the sea covet the land. They surge from the ocean's surface, roaring as they come ashore. To protect this land, the Aginta family made a vow, offering sacrifice after sacrifice. Rain washed over the gravestones, cold and silent. Diello stood alone, rain streaking down his cheeks, like tear tracks. I wanted to scream. In the vast room, suppressed sobs echoed, one after another. The door opened. Radius walked in. Duke Diello. Diello was curled up by the bed, sobbing. Uncle. Diello clutched the bed sheets. I hate the sea, because the monsters that come from there took everyone. Radius. Looked down at Diello, his face obscured by shadows. Dry your tears. Many people are waiting to see the Aginta family fall. You must be strong. From now on, you must get used to sacrifice. Don't trust anyone so easily again. Radius reached out and wiped the tears from Diello's face. Don't just look at the individuals of the Aginta family. Look at it as a whole. To survive, you must make yourself ruthless. Radius placed his hand on Diello's shoulder. Diello whimpered, Uncle. Radius pulled Diello into his embrace. The two were swallowed by darkness, leaving only endless loneliness. The reason I keep thinking of him today is probably because I've been dispatched to the camp where my uncle is the commander. Diello leaned over his horse, his black hair falling forward. I have a bad feeling. Diello gripped the reins tightly. The sound of hooves was urgent. I hope my intuition is wrong. Diello rode at the head of a massive army behind him. His eyes were sharp, scanning the path ahead. A knight swung his sword, its flaming blade slashing at a white monster. The monster roared as the flames seared its skin. The knight gritted his teeth, clashing his two-handed sword against the monster's sharp claws. The monster suddenly put forth its strength, sending the knight flying. The knight fell heavily to the ground. The monster opened its cavernous mouth and lunged at the fallen knight. The knight's pupils contracted. Damn it, I was too careless. Is this the end? A streak of crimson flame split the sky. The monster was instantly engulfed in fire. It shrieked in agony within the flames. The knight sat paralyzed on the ground and looked up. Diello walked out of the firelight. Diello extended his hand, a flame burning in his palm. Lord Diello. Diello's eyes were icy. He drew the sword from his waist, its tip pointing forward. Diello charged forward on his horse, his spear pointed straight ahead. Behind him, flames swept over the monster army. The soldiers erupted in a deafening roar. The leader has arrived. Lord Diello. Radius watched Diello's figure, a complex look flashing in his eyes. Diello's gaze burned like a torch. The flame of the Agenta family still burns. He raised his flaming sword, his roar echoing across the battlefield. Noritrit, all forces charge. The sword slashed down. Flames surged like a giant wave, instantly engulfing the entire battlefield. The remains of monsters were scattered everywhere, letting out final hisses in the firelight. A soldier shouted, "They're retreating." Another soldier sighed in relief. Is it over? Suddenly, a giant, scaled claw emerged from the black mist. With a fierce swipe of the claw, water appeared out of thin air, pouring down like a waterfall and instantly extinguishing the flames. The battlefield was shrouded in mist, and the monsters were unharmed. The soldiers' faces turned pale. How is that possible? A monster that can use water magic. Another soldier's voice trembled. The number of monsters is several times greater than before. Diello's pupils contracted. He spun around abruptly, looking into the depths of the mist-filled battlefield. Diello's sword burned, flames soaring into the sky. But the flames were blocked by an invisible force. Water rained down from the sky, dousing the fire. Behind a curtain of water, a blue humanoid creature draped in a white veil appeared. It floated in the air, surrounded by black tentacles. The creature slowly opened its arms. The deep blue seawater below surged forth, instantly submerging the entire battlefield. Diello stood alone before the monstrous waves, his cloak whipping violently. He tightened his grip on his sword's hilt, facing the abyssal terror head-on. Diello gritted his teeth. The flames couldn't reach them at all. He stared at the wall of water. It was impossible to break through from such a distance. The afterglow of the setting sun cast a golden light on Diello's profile. So, the report from the cattle desert was true. Monsters that could use fire magic had appeared there. Diello's thoughts churned. The head of the cattle family had once unleashed his power and instantly crushed the monsters. But I have yet to unleash mine. I can only do my best to delay them. The reinforcements I requested can't be counted on either. If I want to stop them, Diello looked ahead. I can only give my all to hold them back. Radius lowered his eyelids. It's my fault. I only requested a small unit, not considering these variables. If my uncle chooses to fight with his life on the line, the losses can be minimized. Diello's hand tightened on his hilt, but those words would become his last. Radius lowered his head. Lord Diello, please allow me to fight. Diello gripped his sword tightly. Go! Diello turned, a flash of determination in his eyes. Don't. A woman's voice cut through the sky. Diello. Diello whipped his head around, a look of shock on his face. Radius also turned in astonishment, looking toward the source of the voice. A cavalry troop appeared on the hill. Leading them was Cloya. Diello was stunned. Cloya, arise! The seawater froze in an instant. Frost spread, solidifying the giant waves into an iceberg. Cloya stood atop the iceberg on her horse, her purple hair flying. She looked down on the battlefield, her eyes cold. Cloya stretched out her hand, a dazzling white light gathering in her palm. A powerful chill erupted from her. Cloya shouted, Diello, I'll hold back this great sea. Cloya's gaze was firm, her red pupils burning with determination. Her cloak fluttered in the fierce wind. Diello gazed at her, the corners of his mouth turning up slightly, an indescribable emotion in his eyes. Cloya extended one hand, her 5 fingers spread. Water droplets floated around her. A giant wave rose from the sea, like a roaring blue wall, surging toward the horizon. Cloya looked up at the mighty tsunami she had summoned. Diello watched the giant wave in the distance. That looked so cool. No. Something's not right. The water monster suddenly shrieked and struggled, as if gripped by an invisible hand. The white behemoth thrashed in the waves, roaring in agony. Cloya sat on her horse, looking down at the chaos below. It wasn't just for show. Cloya was controlling it. Cloya's gaze was icy as she raised her sword with one hand. The blade hummed, energy gathering into an arc of light. Cloya swung her sword fiercely, severing the invisible bonds. Countless water blades sliced through the giant wave, tearing the tsunami to shreds. The water monster was dismembered along with it, its body disintegrating. A mist of blood spread as its desperate roars echoed across the battlefield. Diello's pupils contracted. The knights behind him were horrified. Diello whipped his head around, looking at Cloya in disbelief. Just who is she? Chloe looked stunned. She looked down at her own hands. The hilt of her sword swayed slightly at her waist. A ball of water appeared out of thin air between Chloe's hands. I knew my power would grow stronger near the source. The water expanded rapidly, a blue light bursting in her palm. But for it to be this strong, before I left, it's true that the more I used this power, the more proficient I became. The water moves according to Penelope's will. I can shape it as I please. It's a good thing I kept practicing. The original Chloe's power was very weak, but I'm different. My reincarnation must have changed my abilities too. A knight approached. "My lady, we are ready." Chloe dismissed the water and ordered the entire army to advance. The army assembled, their red capes whipping loudly in the wind. Just as I wished. It was worth coming here myself. The assembled forces far exceeded my expectations. Chloe reined in her horse and looked back, her white cloak fluttering in the wind. Chloe raised her hand. "All units, advance to the 4th district." The knights responded in unison. "Yes, my lady." The sound of hooves suddenly erupted as the army began its charge. Chloe rode with ease. I'm surprisingly skilled at riding now. It seems the original Chloe Araz not only had experience, but talent as well. Chloe galloped on her white horse, the knights following close behind. "My lady, we'll reach the 4th district soon." Chloe looked down at her troops. "Good." Chloe thought from her horse. "I don't know how much help I can be, but for the sake of the future, we must win today's battle." Chloe galloped along the coastline on her white horse. The closer she got to the sea, the more Chloe's red eyes shimmered, and the Araz blood within her boiled. Chloe pulled on the reins, her white horse stopping at the cliff's edge. The shadow of the behemoth loomed over her. A soldier gaped, staring in shock at the scene before him. She controlled that monstrous wave all by herself. She protected us. Chloe's expression was dazed. To be honest, I even scared myself. I never expected my power to grow to this extent near the sea. Just how strong are the other Araz? Chloe's gaze darkened. If things follow the original story, Perola will appear on the next family head, and they will possess a completely different power. Wait, does the next family head have Perola? Chloe held out her hands. If I don't die according to the original story, if I can use my power like this, then there's no reason I won't be chosen as the next family head. Chloe looked up, her figure enveloped by a massive shadow. The knights behind her were equally dumbfounded. Diello muttered to himself, "She's not even the family head. How can she have this kind of power? Just how powerful is Duke Araz? This is insane." Chloe stared at the scene before her. What is this?" Diello's expression was grave. "The mage is gone." He was suddenly alarmed. Did it disappear? His vision was engulfed by a purple light. The sea's surface trembled violently. The waves are getting bigger. It's not hiding. The knights cried out in alarm. Chloe's eyes locked onto the front. "I see them. They're hiding beneath the waves." "But hiding is useless," Chloe declared loudly. "Useless?" The water monster gave a silent, wicked laugh, its body swept up by the giant wave. Chloe's eyes narrowed. "Now." Chloe pushed one hand forward. A water spout roared into existence. The current burst forth in front of Chloe, converging into a massive blue beam that shot toward the water monster. The water monster was engulfed by the torrent, its body trembling. Controlling the water currents makes it difficult to kill them in a single blow. Chloe's eyes were cold, her fingers tightening slightly. "Then I'll just use more power." A voice called from behind. Chloe turned. "Diello." Diello was walking toward her. Diello opened his palm, and a ball of fire ignited in it, the flames illuminating one side of his face. Diello raised his hand, and a pillar of fire shot into the sky. He pushed the flames toward the heavens. The inferno exploded in the air, turning into countless fireballs that fell like meteors. The rain of fire crashed onto the sea's surface, instantly vaporizing the giant waves. The water monster shrieked and dissipated in the steam. Intertwining flames and steam devoured everything. A massive explosion echoed across the sea. Cheers of victory resounded through the clouds. "We won." Diello raised his arm and cheered. "The water monster is defeated." To control the battlefield. To be this powerful even before his power has fully awakened. Chloe's feet touched the ground, her body staggering slightly. As expected, Diello's power is beyond imagination. Diello rushed forward and caught Cloya. Cloya. Diello gripped Cloya's cloak tightly. Cloya, are you all right? Why are you here? Cloya gazed at him. I was worried. I can't let my accomplice get hurt. More importantly, I thought I could be of use. Diello responded softly, thank you, Cloya. Cloya's eyes flickered. I thought with your personality, you wouldn't be good at fighting. But maybe. Diello's profile was resolute, the tips of his hair burning with flames. You're different from the person I knew. Cloya lay quietly, her long purple hair spread across the pillow, her sleeping face peaceful. A hand gently stroked her hair. Diello sat by the bed, leaning over to gaze at Cloya. Diello's gaze was serene, a faint smile on his lips. The last rays of the sun faded. A knight's voice came from the distance. My lord, the battlefield has been cleared. Diello gave the order. Good, we're leaving. The subordinate replied, as you command. The knights gathered around. One of them spoke up. We will escort the lady. Diello raised a hand to cut him off. No. Diello looked down at Cloya in his arms. I will take her on my horse myself. The sound of hooves broke the night's silence as the knights rode through the woods. Diello held Cloya. Her silent presence was a heavy weight against him. The scent of the sea, which he once loathed, was now like a thirst-quenching nectar. Diello whispered Cloya, Araz. No. Diello tightened his arms, burying his face in the crook of her neck, whispering Cloya. Diello gazed at Cloya. It's all thanks to you. Having witnessed the deaths of countless clansmen and my parents, I try not to form bonds with anyone. I had to be cold and ruthless, indifferent to any death. But if there was one person who could break free from that sea of death and bravely fight against it, Cloya's image appeared in his mind. She broke through the restraints, shaking off the shackles of death as if reborn. Diello whispered in that case, Cloya. Diello leaned down, taking a strand of her hair into his mouth. I will. Cloya slowly opened her eyes, her vision blurry. The pattern on the ceiling was familiar. It seems I've returned safely to the residence. Cloya lay in bed, unable to move even a finger. Her mouth was dry, as if all the moisture had been drained from her body. It said that after using their powers, the three great families all experienced different side effects. This must be mine. A knock sounded, and the door was gently pushed open. A maid walked in carrying a pitcher of water. Seeing Cloya, the maid said in surprise, Ah, you're awake, my lady. Cloya managed to reply, Just woke up. The maid immediately turned. I'll go get the doctor right away. Cloya stopped her. Don't bother. More importantly, Cloya propped herself up and asked urgently, Sir Radius, is he all right? The maid looked confused. What did you say? Cloya clarified. I'm talking about the field commander of the 4th District. No. Are all the soldiers who participated in the battle safe? What are the casualties? The maid bowed and replied, Sir Radius and the troops of the 4th District only sustained minor injuries. After visiting you, he immediately returned to the 4th District. Cloya pressed, Sir Radius has already been here? How long was I unconscious? The maid replied, You were unconscious for about a day and a half. A day and a half. The maid continued her report. Yes, my lady. Thanks to your support in the battle of the 4th District, the losses were kept to a minimum. Cloya placed a hand on her chest and sighed in relief. I'm so glad I could help. As long as Sir Radius is alive, that's the greatest help to Aginta. The plan was a success, although there are some side effects. Cloya asked, By the way, where is Diello? The maid replied, He has returned safely and is handling official business. He even took time out of his busy schedule to visit you. Cloya instructed, Tell him I'm fine too. The maid added, Understood. However, he ordered that a doctor must be called as soon as you woke up. Cloya nodded. All right, go get the doctor and report to Diello while you're at it. The maid turned to leave, solemnly declaring, Yes. For Aginta, the maid bowed and exited the room. For Aginta, Cloya's eyes flickered. The phrase stirred something in her heart. A knock sounded again. The maid's voice came through. My lady, the doctor is here. Cloya replied, Ah, come in. The doctor pushed up his glasses. The doctor walked to the bedside. I'll just do a simple checkup for you, my lady. Cloya nodded. Okay. After his diagnosis, the doctor turned. You'll recover with proper rest. There's nothing seriously wrong with your body. The doctor added, If you feel any discomfort, please call for me anytime. Cloya smiled in response. Okay, thank you. I'll be careful. The doctor and the maids bowed together, declaring in unison, For Aginta, Cloya watched them leave. For Aginta, the words kept echoing in her ears. There was another knock on the door. A voice said, My lady, may I come in for a moment? Cloya replied, Please come in. Cloya looked at Pierre. Is this camaraderie from battle? Everyone said for Argenta before they left, like it's some kind of pact. The atmosphere here is completely different from before. Pierre placed a tray on the bedside table and explained softly, rather than camaraderie, I'd say. Your actions left a deep impression on them. Chloe was puzzled. Why? Pierre scooped up a spoonful of soup. Even the people of Argenta are usually afraid to throw themselves onto the battlefield for Argenta. But you charged into battle more fearlessly than any of them. Pierre smiled and said, the people of Argenta all believe you have fought your first battle. Although your abilities are not considered powerful, I also believe you have experienced your first battle. Chloe asked, my first battle? What does that mean? Pierre stirred the soup with his spoon. Is the trial to become a true member of Argenta? It's a cruel test. Participants must survive with their bare hands, relying only on their own flames. If a participant fails, their power is absorbed by the Lord. But if they survive, they become a true member of Argenta. Chloe lay in bed, her eyes vacant. In other words, it's still a system of live or die. I still can't get used to it. But now I understand that subtle sense of comradeship among the people of Argenta. I don't know when I'll leave this place, but to become one of the Argenta. A smile appeared on Chloe's lips. It feels strange. Chloe's silhouette was cast on the ornate gate, a suitcase at her feet. My determination to leave when I must hasn't changed. The real Philo will appear soon. I have to start preparing. Chloe looked out the window and called softly, Pierre. Pierre entered at her call. Yes, my lady. Chloe gave her order. Can you give me a map of the continent? Deep within the continent, there's a place where one can live a prosperous and peaceful life. That is the Daisy Forest. Chloe's finger tapped on an old map, on the words Daisy Forest. Of course, it's still infested with wild beasts right now, but in a few years, the river near the forest will be massively developed. Real estate is the future. Chloe clenched her fist, her eyes shining with conviction. The only problem is the startup capital. Buying it now is a surefire investment. Where will the money come from? Chloe rested her chin on one hand. Lost in thought, a voice called from outside the door, Chloe. Chloe looked up at the sound. Diello. Diello's hand rested on the back of her chair. I was worried about you. Chloe. Diello stood by the bed. I heard you were awake. I wanted to come sooner, but the coastal region has been causing trouble. Chloe looked up slightly. So, are you apologizing for not being by my side when I woke up? Diello lowered his eyelids. Yes, I'm sorry, and thank you. Chloe responded softly. It's all right. You must have been swamped. I heard from Radius. Diello gazed at her. Are you really okay? A blush appeared on Chloe's face. It was the first time I used my power like that, so my body was a bit shocked, but I'm fine now. Diello looked at the moon through the window. You forced yourself to use your power. If it weren't for you, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Thanks to you, Agenda was able to save so many people. Diello turned around, his hand on his lower lip. I should have advised you not to do that again, but that power was just too astonishing. If the same thing happens again, I don't think I'll be able to stop her. Chloe, what should I do? Chloe answered without hesitation. What do you mean? What should you do? Of course I'll help again. Aren't we allies until we drive out the House of Araz? Diello sat down on the bed. Thank you, Chloe. Diello took a letter from his coat. By the way, Duke Araz sent a letter for you, Chloe. Diello handed over the envelope. I thought you might need to see it, so I brought it. Chloe took the letter. She pulled out the letter. The handwriting was messy. The letter requested a monthly meeting. Chloe, the purpose of this letter is probably to check on the progress of the plan to steal Diello's purity. To send this just when I'm struggling to make plans for the future. That's so like Duke Araz. Chloe sighed softly. Wait a minute. In Duke Araz's marriage contract, wasn't there that unreasonable clause? One of them was that 50 of the profits from Agenta's key mines and farmlands would be paid to Araz as Duchess Chloe's taste maintenance fee. A taste maintenance fee. A glint of gold flashed in Chloe's eyes. I found my startup capital. Diello looked at her. Chloe? Chloe immediately composed herself. It's nothing. Don't mind me. Diello glimpsed the map on Chloe's lap. What's that on your lap? Is that a map? Chloe spread the map open. Ah, yes. I had Pierre bring it to me. I've been thinking about living near the Daisy Forest after I leave Argentia. Diello's expression froze. He fell silent, just watching her quietly. Chloe sensed something was wrong. Diello? Diello looked straight at her. So, after you leave Argenta? Diello's face darkened, and the atmosphere suddenly turned icy. Diello didn't turn back. Chloe, you should sleep first. I still have some work to handle. Chloe gave a gentle smile. All right, I'll sleep first. You're always working so hard. The door closed softly behind Diello. Chloe watched Diello leave. Diello walked alone down the empty corridor, his footsteps echoing in the night. The Daisy Forest. Why there? Is it because of the large river near the forest? Does she want to use the river's power to destroy Araz and then face Aginta alone? Diello stopped in his tracks. No, she wouldn't be that reckless. He covered his face with his hands. Does she really have to leave? I thought she was smart. Why can she only see one side of things and not the other? Diello's fingers brushed over his own eyes. Those eyes were once covered by a cloth, unable to see. Just like Cloya now, who only sees the path to leaving but not the possibility of staying. Cloya's roots in Aginta are too deep. Aginta won't let her live peacefully. When the real Philo arrives, Cloya's usefulness will end. She will be cast aside. Diello's fingers tightened. She should be killed. That was the original plan. Diello's hand fell to his side. Why am I hesitating? Is it just because she's willing to cooperate? Just because she saved countless people of Aginta? Just because her power is so desirable? Is it just because an image appeared in Diello's mind? Cloya in a golden gown, her smile radiant. Diello stood silently in the corridor with his head down. If Philo's arrival is delayed, I think maintaining the status quo wouldn't be bad. In fact, things might be even better now than before. Diello stood in the empty hall. You are too dazzling for the House of Araz. So dazzling you radiate light. If you were the real Philo, if you could truly become Philo, that would be even better. Cloya leaned out of the carriage window, waving at Diello. I'll be back safely. Cloya gave a confident smile. I'm a good actress. Don't worry. Diello nodded slightly. I know. Cloya boarded the carriage. I'm leaving now. Diello stood outside the carriage. All right, I'll wait for you. Go on. The carriage slowly pulled away, the sound of its wheels fading into the distance. In the darkness, withered roses and thorns intertwined. The color of blood stained Diello's name. 3 lavishly dressed noblemen stood by. Araz wore a faint smile. Cloya, it's been a while. Cloya curtsied slightly, her hand on her chest. Greetings, Your Grace the Duke. Cloya slowly raised her head, her gaze calm. Thanks to you, I'm enjoying a blissful newlywed life. Araz gestured with his hand. All right, that's enough greetings. I've prepared tea in the reception room. Let's go over there and have a comfortable chat. Cloya lowered her hands. His expressionless greeting. How shameless. What is he plotting now? The group followed the Duke into the spacious reception room. The atmosphere was cold and formal. Araz turned sideways. For a warm reunion with my daughter, could I ask you all to step aside for a moment? Araz revealed a meaningful smile. Pierre and the others looked grave and fell silent. Araz chuckled. What? Does the House of Aginta not permit a father and daughter to be alone together? Araz's tone changed. Were you suggesting I would harm my own daughter? Araz took a step closer, his gaze sharp. Pierre froze on the spot. Pierre nodded slightly. Araz said yes. That's how you should respond. Araz led Cloya, turned, and walked slowly toward the main door. The large doors slowly closed, shutting the attendants out. Then please wait outside the mansion until our conversation is over. 2 knights and 2 maids stood before the door, their expressions grave. Pierre's eyes were downcast, not saying a word. Araz broke the silence. How's the progress? I heard the 2 of you are inseparable, almost blinding others with your affection. Cloya replied calmly. So far, Diello and I are still sharing a room. Her eyes sharpened. What is this situation? The Araz family servants are already in the reception room. But the problem is, Diello's Aginta people are also here. This doesn't feel right. Cloya continued. He's a bit naive. Plus, since I was born into the House of Araz, it seems he needs time to open his heart. Araz questioned, are you sure it's not because you aren't trying hard enough? Cloya looked him straight in the eye. Of course I'm trying, but you know as well as I do, Your Grace. For the leader and the Philo to truly unite, just stealing his purity isn't enough. Araz lowered his eyelids. I know, Cloya explained. Diello won't consummate the marriage and break the seal until I open up to him. So, it looks like it will take some more time. You snake, couldn't you even predict something like that? As the saying goes, physical intimacy breeds emotional attachment. Can't you just do it properly? I already knew he was a scumbag. Cloya's hands clenched the hem of her skirt, but seeing it in person was even worse than I imagined. Araz's eyes were icy. An invisible pressure enveloped Cloya. Cloya's breath caught. It was suffocating. The air grew thick, pressing down, so one could hardly breathe. Araz picked up his teacup. Didn't I tell you to find a way to seduce him? Did you not understand? Chloe looked up abruptly. Araz's face twisted in her eyes like a demon's. Chloe forced herself to remain calm. Of course I'm trying. Araz cut her off. What's the use of effort without results? Things aren't going according to plan. Your Grace, Araz sneered. Could it be that man, at his age, is already impotent, cold-blooded, and despicable? Truly an irredeemable scumbag. Chloe responded. That doesn't seem to be the case. He just isn't in the mood, so we can't consummate the marriage. I'm sorry, Diello, but I have to survive first. If I force it, he'll only shut himself off more. So I plan to take it slow. Chloe's lips curved into a slight smile. Regarding that, I have a strategy. Araz narrowed his eyes. What strategy? Chloe's gaze drifted out the window. To capture Diello's heart, I need some capital. But in that house, aside from the Duchess's living expenses, I have almost no money I can use. Therefore, I'd like to transfer a portion of the Duchess's living expenses to my name. Even just 1/10 would be enough. Araz was silent for a moment. He smiled. You have a point. We'll do as you say. I will allocate some funds to you. But his tone shifted. However, when you come next month, you must produce better results. Understand? Chloe nodded. Understood. All right. The funding issue is resolved. Although I was threatened, I managed to get through it. Chloe turned to leave. They'll take my leave. Araz's voice came from behind. Wait. Chloe stopped and turned back, puzzled. Araz spoke slowly. The name carved on your back. Diello Agenta. Araz's smile turned eerie. That name must turn red. Chloe's pupils constricted. She snapped back to reality. The sky was already dusk. The attendants were walking out of the ducal mansion. Pierre hurried to Chloe's side. My lady. Chloe looked at the carriage. Let's go. Right now. Pierre responded. Yes. The coachman raised his whip. We're off. Yes. The carriage started moving slowly, pulling away from the ducal mansion. Pierre sat across from Chloe. My lady, you look very pale. Are you all right? Chloe's body suddenly lurched forward, and she fell heavily onto the carriage floor. Pierre cried out in alarm. My lady, from under her skirt, a splash of crimson slowly spread. A voice was calling, my lady. My lady. Pierre shook Chloe's body. My lady, please wake up. Chloe barely managed to open her eyes. Pierre, I'm fine. I just need a rest. Two maids supported Chloe. One of them, her face full of worry. What on earth happened at the Araz estate? Chloe's body trembled, and she let out a muffled groan. Pierre's gaze froze. He saw the blood stain on the back of his hand. Pierre leaned down. Miss, may I see your back? Chloe lay weakly on her stomach. Pierre reached out cautiously. Then, excuse my impertinence. His fingertips touched the fabric and gently lifted it. His pupils contracted sharply. The other maid covered her mouth in horror. He saw a bloody Mangelbrand. Diello. Pierre's voice trembled slightly. Was it like this last time, too? Chloe answered weakly. Yes. You knew, didn't you? Diello's name is carved on it. Pierre looked at his blood-covered hands. Even so, I'll administer first aid immediately. It doesn't matter if we arrive at the estate a little late. I'll drive the carriage steadily. Chloe responded softly. All right. Thank you. The hands of a pocket watch ticked. Diello's fingertips brushed across his lower lip. He gazed at the moonlight outside the window. She should have arrived long ago. Could something have happened? Footsteps sounded. The butler announced from outside the door, Master, the young lady has arrived. Diello turned. She's late. Diello strode towards the door. Chloe stood between the maids. Diello, why aren't you asleep yet? Chloe showed a faint smile. Diello's eyes instantly turned cold. His hands clenched in front of him. Diello's gaze locked onto her leg. You want to see him again. Chloe's fingertips lightly touched her lips. You know, Diello took a step forward. I just found out. Diello looked down at Chloe. You should treat your wound properly, Chloe. Chloe looked up and smiled. The first aid was done very well, Diello. I'll be fine. The wound inside will heal slowly. So, Diello suddenly grabbed Chloe's shoulders. He leaned in close, his gaze sharp. Let's treat it properly one more time. Diello called out softly, Chloe. Araz. Chloe closed her eyes. All right, if you're willing, I'd be grateful. Chloe folded her hands in front of her. That face of yours. To be able to smile after something like that. Do you have any idea how maddening that is? Chloe let out a cry of pain. Diello sat on the edge of the bed, holding an ointment. Tell me if it hurts too much. Chloe chuckled lightly. Will telling you make it hurt less? Diello said expressionlessly, no. I'll just finish faster. Dielo's fingers pressed on the brand. Chloe's body tensed. Chloe turned her face away. Then please be quick. It stings terribly. It even hurts to stretch my arm. Dielo's movements paused. He stood up, looking down at the wound on Chloe's back. Chloe pleaded softly, Dielo, please hurry. Dielo's gaze fell on the bruise on her neck. A bruise? Dielo's pupils contracted sharply. What in the world is this? Dielo grabbed a handful of Chloe's hair. The brand on Chloe's back was clearly visible. Dielo Agenta. Dielo remained silent. Dielo's face was cast in shadow. His hands clenched into fists. Dielo? Chloe sensed something was wrong. What is it? Is something bothering you? Dielo turned, forcing a smile onto his face. It's nothing. Dielo continued applying the medicine to her. I'll finish as quickly as possible. Chloe answered softly, please do. Dielo put down the ointment. All done. Chloe sat up. Thank you. Dielo stared at her, his gaze profound. Dielo looked at Chloe. Take off your outer robe before you sleep. Chloe looked bewildered. Dielo's hand reached for the tie of her nightgown. Chloe's face instantly flushed red. What? Dielo explained. Wearing clothes will chafe the wound on your back. The pain will worsen. You'll sleep better without it. Chloe clutched her clothes, startled. He's right, but sleeping together while being so exposed is a bit. Am I the strange one? In front of such a pure person. Dielo took Chloe's hand. You don't need to worry about anything else, Chloe. We made a promise, remember? Chloe continued. We just have to hold hands when we sleep. Dielo held her hand and placed a gentle kiss on the lace at her wrist. Dielo opened his eyes, his gaze gentle. Chloe's heart raced, her cheeks growing warm. Her fingertips curled. Dielo's fingers slipped through hers, interlocking tightly. All right, Chloe lay down obediently. The two lay on the bed, holding hands. Dielo gazed at her. Chloe opened her eyes. Dielo leaned over. As I thought, I still can't do it. Chloe's pupils widened. What was he talking about? Dielo opened his eyes. The sheets rustled slightly. Chloe's heart pounded. She opened her eyes and stared upwards. Dielo's hand reached for Chloe's cheek. Her body tensed. Dielo suddenly sat up and grabbed a pillow. He held it out. Here, a pillow for you. Chloe took the pillow and hugged it, a look of confusion on her face. Dielo gazed at her. It might be uncomfortable for you to lie on your side. Sleep while hugging the pillow, Chloe. Chloe's cheeks flushed. So that's what it was. Thank you for your consideration. Dielo. Chloe lay down. Dielo tucked the blanket around her. Cover yourself well, so you don't catch a cold. Chloe hugged the pillow tightly. Dielo chuckled. You were surprised again. Chloe's cheeks reddened. Stop laughing. Dielo reached out and gently took Chloe's hand. Good night. Chloe squeezed Dielo's hand back. You too, Dielo. Sleep well. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting dappled shadows on the floor. Chloe let out a soft murmur and slowly opened her eyes. Chloe gazed at the sleeping Dielo. He's sleeping so soundly. It's unusual for him to sleep this late. Was he that tired? A knock came from outside the bedroom door. The door was pushed open gently. A maid peeked her head in. Chloe raised a finger to her lips, signaling the maid to be quiet. The maid understood, nodded lightly, and closed the door silently. Chloe got out of bed and draped an outer robe over her shoulders. Is there something urgent? Right, today is the shadow distribution day. The final verification documents need to be stamped. I just need to check the items. It's time-consuming, but not difficult. Chloe was lost in thought. He was so considerate. I should repay him. Chloe sat on the edge of the bed. Dielo was very careful with the medicine. The wound doesn't hurt as much. Maybe with proper care, it will heal quickly. Chloe put on her shoes and walked to the door. The maids came forward to greet her. Pierre asked, My lady, are you feeling better? Chloe smiled slightly. Much better than yesterday. Thank you for your concern. More importantly, today is Shadow Distribution Day. I'll handle the final approval for Dielo. Pierre looked worried. Are you going back to work so soon? It would be better to rest a bit more. Chloe said as she walked. No, if I rest now, people will wonder what happened at the Araz estate yesterday. Chloe's eyes were firm. If I'm going to deceive them, I have to do it thoroughly. Pierre bowed. Understood. But if you're pushing yourself too hard, please tell us immediately. Chloe nodded. Of course. Dielo woke with a start. He looked around the empty room. He reached out and touched the other side of the bed. It was already cold. Dielo picked up the note from the pillow. Dielo, you were sleeping so soundly, so I got up first. I'm going to handle the final approval for the shadow distribution. Consider it my way of repaying you for your careful attention. Dielo sighed softly. He sat on the edge of the bed, his fingertips lightly touching his lips. He opened his palm and stared at it, as if he could still feel her warmth. Even though she's from the Araz family, her hand is so warm. Even the steady rhythm of her breathing. Cloya. Sunlight filled the courtyard. The fountain murmured. Cloya sat at a table, dealing with a mountain of documents. Pierre stood respectfully to the side. Diello stood on high, looking down at Cloya in the courtyard. Diello turned. Duke Araz sent over Cloya's clothing allowance. The butler followed behind him. Yes. Diello stopped walking. How much? The butler replied, only 1/10 of the usual amount. Diello was lost in thought. Diello walked to the balcony, continued to monitor her. The butler bowed. Yes. Diello calculated inwardly. 1/10 is still a huge sum, but she won't use it on decorations or socializing like other noble ladies. Diello's eyes sharpened. Then, she will most likely use this money to buy the daisy forest. Cloya, the next heir of the Araz family. She's said to be far more capable than him. Elemental affinity. The water-based Araz family counters the fire-based Agena family. And I don't even have a philo. Diello whispered her name, Cloya. If the Araz family is really stronger than him, instead of forging a philo contract, declaring war directly on Agenta would be the shortcut. He only said this was a car to catch Araz off guard. Diello's gaze passed through the gaps in the railing, landing on Cloya in the courtyard. Diello clenched his fist, blue energy gathering in his hand. But he never said this card would be so alluring. Diello's thoughts churned. Having witnessed the immense power she displayed at sea, how could I not want her? Cloya turned her head in the courtyard, a faint, imperceptible smile on her lips. Diello's resolve was set. So I don't want to lose you. Cloya, the butler bowed. Master. Diello turned his head. Someone wishes to see you in secret. The butler lowered his head. He has been reconsidered. Diello looked up. A secret meeting? The butler answered affirmatively. Yes. The butler continued his report. She claims to be the real Philo. And it's someone you already know. Diello's pupils constricted. What? Footsteps echoed. Leather shoes stepped onto the polished floor. Diello stopped. Have you checked the philo mark? The man's calm gaze looked forward. He walked toward a magnificent door. The attendant pushed open the double doors. A woman sat inside the luxurious hall, waiting alone. Diello's gaze tightened abruptly. The traitor of Agenta, Binia. The woman rested her chin on her hand, leaning lazily against the sofa. A smile played on her lips. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Since we were children, Duke Diello Agenta. Strictly speaking, this is the first time since the late Duke and Duchess of Agenta passed away, isn't it? Diello's thoughts churned. A memory flashed. A woman speaking to a man. Of course, the person I must fall in love with. Is he the traitor who sold my parents to the enemy? Diello's face darkened, his gaze like a knife. Binia raised her eyes to meet Diello's gaze. Don't stare at me like that. She stroked her arm. What can I do? I am the Philo. Binia rolled up her sleeve, revealing the mark of Diello Agenta on her arm. You must be shocked that I could sneak into Agenta without anyone knowing. But don't blame them. Binia's fingertips twitched. A stream of liquid rose from the teacup, hovering in midair. It's just that no one can touch me. Diello's brow furrowed. An Agenta using water power. How is that possible? No. Diello's pupils contracted as a certain power materialized in his eyes. Something's not right. Cloya's and Duke Araz's water power isn't like this. Binia's water power feels murkier. Binia played with the liquid in her hand. Duke Araz is behind me. He told me not to touch you. They're not that incompetent. Diello watched coldly. That's a lie. Diello picked up his teacup. Doesn't he know? Duke Araz has already sent Cloya as the Philo. If Duke Araz knew Binia was the real Philo, he would have bought her off or eliminated her long ago. So what secret is this traitor hiding? Binia returned the levitating liquid to the cup. By the way, I'm rather surprised that Diello Agenta, the man who couldn't even light a single flower, killed my parents. Binia leaned forward, her hand on Diello's shoulder. Duke Araz probably thinks my plan succeeded, but I know what happened between Araz and Agena back then. You stood by and did nothing, letting the Duke and Duchess die. Binia leaned close to Diello's face, her breath fragrant. You could have saved them, but you didn't, right? Why did it have to be you? The Philo. Binia chuckled. All right, why me? Why not him? Why must I fall in love with someone like you? Binia's eyes were playful. I'm not that bad, am I? Even knowing your secret, I kept my mouth shut. I remained silent to evade Agenta's intelligence network, and he packaged everything so well. Diello lowered his gaze. But Benia looked down out the window. Cloya was talking with a maid. So what's the deal with that fake philo? Benia turned to face Diello. I heard the wedding was grand. You haven't foolishly given up your purity, have you? You weren't surprised at all when you saw me. It seems you already knew she was an imposter. Whatever you're thinking, kill her quickly. Then we can prepare our bridal chamber. Benia raised her hand and pointed out the window. If you can't bring yourself to do it, should I do it for you? Diello's eyes were cold, killing intent radiating from them. Diello leaned back against the sofa. What's the rush? All right, as long as I become the Duchess of Aginta, I can escape more than a decade of being hunted and live a life of wealth and nobility. But for Aginta, isn't finding the philo a higher priority than me? Benia's eyes sharpened. Make the arrangements quickly. Otherwise, I don't know what rumors I might spread. Diello shot to his feet. Do you know why I watched the Duke and Duchess die? Diello strode forward, the sound of his leather shoes echoing in the silence. Diello leaned close to Benia. You wanted to become the Duke, right? Diello said, the position above the Duke is already mine. You don't need to do that. Diello's eyes grew dangerous. Watching an ignorant rabbit run into the bloody maw of a beast. I find it quite amusing. Diello suddenly pulled Benia into his arms. Benia looked shocked. Diello whispered, remember when I was in grave danger back then? Benia's eyes flickered. You were weak, right? No. A flame ignited in Diello's palm. Powerful bloodlines like my father's and Aginta's are rarely born weak. If the body can't bear it, it can't wield this power. I know that once a stronger heir is chosen, the ducal mark transfers. Once the Duke changes, the previous philo becomes useless. So, who is it that poisoned me? The future Duke? Diello's smile was meaningful. To those who want to kill me, why should I show mercy? Including you, who knows the secret. After all, I am the philo. Benia's body tensed. Even if he threatens me like this, he can't kill me. Diello released Benia. Forget it. Let's prepare for the wedding. Diello turned away. Before it's too late, Aginta needs to welcome the real philo. Diello's gaze swept over the flame, unwavering. Before it's too late. There are many obstacles ahead. Now is not the time. It's still too early. The pressure from Araz and Cartier has not been lifted. There are still traitors lurking within Aginta. A traitor who can even use philo-like water power, even if that power is somewhat murky. Most importantly, if Cloya finds out the real philo has appeared, our contract will expire. She will leave Aginta. If only Cloya were the real philo. How wonderful that would be. Diello's gaze was somber. What's the difference between you and Cloya? What do you have that she doesn't? Why did it have to be you who became my philo? If I can just figure that out. Diello turned, his eyes resolute. I need to investigate the selection criteria for a philo. I will thoroughly investigate this traitor's entire life, not missing a single detail. The attendant behind Diello bowed. The mistress of Aginta absolutely cannot be a frivolous traitor. Diello strode away. Suddenly, Benia's panicked shouts were heard. What's happening? I'm starting to crave perfection. Benia struggled. I am your philo. How dare you let go of me? Diello peered through a gap in the curtains, gazing at Cloya in the courtyard. That is not the philo I am destined to love. Diello's lips curved up slightly, but his eyes were as cold as frost. That is the philo I cannot love. Pierre announced softly from outside the door, pardon the intrusion, my lady. Cloya, sitting behind her desk, said come in. Pierre entered the ornate room. I brought the map you asked for. Pierre handed over the map. Cloya reached out to take it. Oh, thank you. Cloya held the map, her gaze absorbed. From now on, I must prepare step by step. Cloya turned her head and instructed Pierre, slowly buy up the land in that area under a false name. Make sure no one notices. Pierre's palms grew slightly sweaty. I understand. And don't forget to use my money to buy it, Cloya added. Also, can you help me forge a commoner's identity? I'll need it. Pierre looked at Cloya. You mean forge an identity, my lady? Cloya's finger tapped the map. Yes, I can't exactly go live on that land under the name Cloya Araz, can I? A knock sounded at the door. Diello's voice came from outside. Cloya. Cloya looked up. Diello? Diello pushed the door open. May I come in? Cloya chuckled lightly. You're already in. Welcome. Diello walked slowly towards the desk. He glanced at the map on the table, his gaze pausing. He leaned in closer, looking at materials on the daisy forest in the central region again. Cloya stared at the map. Yes, I have to look at it when I have time. Diello looked directly at her. Are you really going to the daisy forest? Cloya's eyes were firm. I have to go. When the real philo returns, my existence as the ex-wife will only get in the way. Hearing this, Diello lowered his gaze. The real philo. Cloya's eyes flickered. Speaking of which, it's been a while since I saved Diello. According to the original story's plot, the real philo should be appearing around now. No, wait. Has the time for her appearance already passed? Diello gazed at Cloya. Cloya, become a true Agenta. Cloya looked up abruptly. What? Why are you suddenly saying that? Cloya pressed a hand to her chest. Diello, it's not that simple. Diello rested his chin on his hand and asked with interest. Why? Cloya covered her forehead. Sigh. They say there's no such thing as pure friendship between a man and a woman. How would you explain me to others? Diello placed both hands on the desk, looking down at Cloya. I'll introduce you as an Agenta. Cloya imagined the scene and shivered involuntarily. Diello, that would be very troublesome for me. Cloya was shrouded in the shadow of social obligations. I'd have to walk on eggshells around the new Duchess, and I'd get dragged into all sorts of gossip. Just thinking about it is terrifying. Cloya regained her composure, so I must respectfully decline. I just want to live out my later years in peace. Cloya taps her fingers on the desk. That's why I have to leave. Diello remains silent. Cloya looks at him. Seeing his sullen expression, she thinks, sigh. How can you survive with such a soft heart? Cloya's hand covers Diello's. I'll still come to see you occasionally. Don't make that face. Cloya's tone shifts. By the way, is there still no news of the real Philo? Diello's gaze falls. Diello looks up, revealing a gentle smile. No. Not yet. Cloya repeats his words. Not yet? Why? Cloya's pupils constrict. Did I remember the order wrong? Or did I miscalculate the time? Something's not right. Cloya looks up and questions him. Is there really no news at all? Diello is resolute. None. A sense of unease fills the air. Is something wrong? Cloya's thoughts race. What on earth is going on? The only thing I changed from the original story was saving Diello. Could that be enough to change when Philo appears? I don't understand. Diello's voice pulls her back to her senses. You seem to really want the real Philo to appear. Cloya gives an awkward laugh. Haha, yes, that's right. I hope she comes soon. Diello turns away, his back shrouded in shadow. I agree. Cloya sighs inwardly. There's nothing I can do right now. I can only wait and see for a while longer. Cloya sits on the sofa, documents scattered around her, her mind restless. She can't focus on her work. She puts down the documents. I should take a break. Cloya looks out the window. She stands up and walks to the window. Outside in the courtyard, several knights ride past on horseback. Cloya stares at one of the figures. Diello, he doesn't look well. Did something happen at the Endless Sea again? For him to go personally, the situation must be serious. A soft knock on the door. Cloya calls out, Pierre, is something going on outside? Pierre says, my lady. Diello said there's an urgent matter at the border of the Endless Sea. He had to leave immediately. The master said it's not a major problem. Cloya is thoughtful. Since he had time to send someone to pass on the message, it seems it's really not a big deal. Cloya feels relieved. Cloya lets out a long breath. Pierre, I want to go for a walk. I can't seem to concentrate today. Pierre immediately agrees. I will guide you at once. How about the garden at sunset? Cloya and Pierre walk down the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Her gaze falls on two people downstairs, their steps in unison. Those people. A doubt arises in Cloya's mind. Why are the knights who guard the fourth floor down on the first floor? Pierre explains, the master ordered them to be stationed here. Cloya presses. Diello gave the order? The core fighting force of the Agenda family, the fourth floor knights, were sent to the first floor, and Diello gave the order himself? Something's not right. A maid runs down the stairs in a panic. My lady, Pierre asks, out of breath, what happened? What's all the noise? The maid reports urgently in the master's office. Myrda's contract is burning. Cloya's hand clenches into a fist. It can't be. It seems he broke the rules. Myrda, he betrayed us after all. Which family did he leak my information to? And he chose a time when Diello isn't here. No matter which family he leaked it to, once my secret gets out, but it's all over. Cloya walks forward hastily. Diello is on an expedition. I have to catch up to him immediately. Is there any way to know Myrda's location? Pierre follows behind her. According to the Shadow Guard's intelligence, he was last seen moving toward the northern border. The northern border is the territory of the Cardiel family of the Wind. Cloya doesn't stop walking. If he went to the northern border, then Myrda plans to defect to the Cardiel family. The one he's leaking secrets to is most likely Cardiel. But between Cardiel and Agenta, there's a mountain range. Why would he think of crossing the mountains? as long as the Agenda family starts a fire. No, there's no need to go by land. You can also take a boat out to sea. A sailboat rides the wind and waves. Mirda must have taken someone who can control the wind. The boat's speed will be several times faster than traveling by land. Chloe and the maids hurry through the corridor, with Pierre following behind. My lady, although that method is feasible, given Mirda's current location, I'm afraid we can no longer catch up. Chloe stops in front of a door. No, we can catch him, because after all, he's on the water. Chloe turns back, a confident smile playing on her lips. Chloe turns, her eyes sharp. We'll set out in pursuit immediately. The setting sun melts into gold. The sea shimmers with a faint light. A subordinate bows. Thank you, Your Grace. Thanks to you coming in person, we were able to wrap things up quickly. Diello says, fortunately, the magic-type monsters from the 4th District didn't appear. Let's clean this place up as soon as possible. Amos bows slightly. Understood. He is dressed in the uniform of 1st District Field Commander. His name is Amos. His eyes shift slightly. This is strange. I clearly reported to Radias that a small unit would be enough to handle it. Yet the master himself came to fight. Diello's hand rests on his sword hilt, his posture upright, his gaze fixed on the distance. And he hasn't used his sword in a long time instead of his flames. This is just my guess. But I can feel a certain emotion from his sword. Diello grips his sword hilt tightly. The blade trembles slightly, reflecting the afterglow of the sunset. Did something happen? Chloe, Araz, become a part of Agenta. I solemnly refuse. I just want to live out my later years in peace. I hate Agenta. Chloe, do you hate staying in Agenta that much? Always plotting to leave the manor. Diello's fingers tap, even planning your retirement. Most importantly, you even have an excited look on your face, as if none of this matters. Diello's brow furrows. Why am I in such a bad mood? A monster's arm falls to the ground, blood splattering. Diello grips his sword hilt, then gently raises it. I'm so irritated I'm about to go crazy. Is he just taking out his anger? Diello's hand hangs at his side, his fingertips glowing with an ominous red light. Caecilius, a subordinate in a red robe, responds. Yes. Diello turns his head. Where was Mirda's last reported location? The subordinate replies, the northern coast. Diello's fist clenches. He lifts it slightly, just when my mood was getting worse. The timing is perfect. Diello turns. Prepare a ship. We'll go to the northern coast. Amos steps forward. Your Grace, our men have already set out to capture him. Diello doesn't stop walking. I know. This time, the traitor's punishment won't be handled according to the manor's procedures. I will deal with it on site myself. The waves churn. A large ship cuts through the waves. Chloe stands on the deck. Pierre, you said the whirlpools in the Cardiel Sea appear periodically, right? Chloe gazes into the distance. When will the whirlpools subside? Pierre responds, the report said it just happened 2 days ago, so it definitely won't appear today. Mirda and the people from Cardiel are likely on a nearby deserted island, waiting for the whirlpool to calm down. Chloe gathers a ball of magical light in her hands, which spins in her palms. Waiting on a deserted island means the whirlpool is about to disappear. We might not be too late, but we're out of time. We have to speed up. A great burst of magical light infuses the ship. The ship's speed suddenly increases. Pierre points ahead. I see the deserted island. The island is close. 2 ships are docked on the shore. One of them is burning fiercely. But there are 2 ships. Pierre is stunned. What? Flames engulf the sails. A fire in the middle of the sea. Chloe's pupils constrict. Could it be? She rushes off the deck, running towards the dense forest in the island's interior. Gillo. Chloe moves through the forest and sees a figure from behind. A man with short brown hair. Chloe stops. Gillo. Her gaze goes over the man's shoulder, and her pupils suddenly contract. A corpse lies on the ground, blood spreading from it. A bloody dagger is stuck in the ground beside it. Diello slowly turns around. Chloe, what are you doing here? Diello turns his face away. While you were on the battlefield, I received a report that Mirda's contract was burning in the office. So I came in your place. Chloe's gaze shifts downward. But did you do this with your own hands, Diello? Diello lowers his eyes. Breaking a contract is a sad thing. I wrote it hoping it would never be broken, and I never thought you would come in person. Chloe, Diello's hand trembles slightly. I also never thought I'd see you here. Chloe looks up. To be more precise, I never thought I'd see this side of you. Diello raises his hand and gently caresses Chloe's cheek. I'm sorry you had to see such an unsightly side of me. Chloe speaks. Did you find out Mirda broke the contract while you were on your expedition, so you rushed here immediately? Diello's hand covers Chloe's eyes. The smell of blood. Yes, I also react when contract is broken. Punishing a traitor is a matter of course for the strict Agenta family. But Diello, has Agenta always been this kind of person? Diello whispers to Cloya. Cloya's gaze trembles slightly. Diello's hand slides down. You said you wanted to leave Agenta, right? Cloya looks directly at Diello. Yes. Diello's voice becomes deep. You now know Agenta's secret. I suspect you'll spread it around. So I have to sign a contract to be able to leave, right? Diello shows an appreciative smile. You're as sharp as ever, Cloya. So just stay in Agenta. Diello pulls Cloya into his arms. You belong here. Cloya's body stiffens. Diello, we've already been through this. Diello leans close to her ear. It's not just me. Many people in Agenta want you. Cloya, I will do my best to persuade the master. Persuade the master? What do you mean? Isn't the master's opinion important? No, I can make it unimportant. Cloya falls silent. Diello's hand grips her arm tightly. Please, Cloya. Diello. Cloya's hand hangs down. He looks down at Cloya. Will you become a member of Agenta, or will you break my heart? If you try to make me stay with that expression, my heart will waver. Cloya closes her eyes. She turns her back, her long hair falling down. In the twilight forest, Cloya and Diello stand hand in hand. Specks of light drift in the wind. Cloya gazes at him. Diello's fingers tighten slightly. His hand is trembling. Diello's hand holds Cloya's. I hate goodbyes, Cloya. The sea of Agenta. It has only ever brought me farewells. You're right. I might only know half the story, but it must have been written that way. A young Diello sat by the sea, endlessly waiting for that knight. A knight who had already died in battle 10 days prior. But the young Diello refused to accept the truth. It's no wonder the perverse Diello. Diello looks down. That would struggle. Cloya takes a deep breath. All right, let's calm down first. Cloya leans against his chest. I promise I won't leave without saying goodbye. Cloya's hand gently strokes Diello's back. Diello asks, really? Cloya answers, yes. I promise. Diello holds her tighter. I don't want to say goodbye, Cloya. Cloya continues, of course. I'll wait until Philo arrives. I won't just disappear after she gets here. Cloya responds softly, thank you. Diello gently embraces her. Before I leave, let me help you train your spirit first. You're being willful, still carefully avoiding my wound. From a distance, Pierre's voice calls out, Master, my lady. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to start cleaning up the scene. Cloya is startled back to reality. All right. Cloya turns. Diello, let's go. Diello responds. All right. Diello announces loudly, erase all traces. Return to Agenta. Cloya stands beside him, looking ahead with determination. The attendants respond, yes. Indoors, the two sit side by side on a sofa. Cloya speaks up. By the way, Diello, you really need to practice your facial expressions. Diello turns his face. Facial expressions? Cloya nods. Yes. Cloya continues. If an enemy saw you just now, they would definitely see you as prey. Cloya holds up a finger. Try to make a fierce expression. Diello struggles to force an expression. Like this? Cloya looks disgusted. You look like a pouting child. This won't do. Cloya places a hand on her chest. I'll personally teach you how to act tough, how to become a charismatic ruler. Diello isn't naive. I could be a good teacher. Diello immediately breaks into a brilliant smile. If you're teaching me, it would be my honor. Cloya says, first, don't show that kind of smile so easily. Diello's expression freezes. Cloya stands up. You should rest first. I'm going upstairs to check on the situation. There are more monsters on the sea at night. Diello's gaze sharpens. He tightens his grip on his sword hilt. Diello suddenly draws his sword. Blood splatters. Cloya turns back. Diello staggers a step, his body leaning forward. He clutches his bleeding arm with his hand. Cloya rushes down the steps. Diello, your arm is bleeding. Cloya kneels beside him. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? When did this start? I didn't notice it before. Diello hangs his head. I think Myrta's blade cut me. The wound worsened over time during the struggle. Cloya gets up. You wait here. I'll go get a doctor right away. Diello grabs her wrist. No, just stay with me. Diello looks up. There might be other traitors lurking. I don't want to draw attention to my condition, whether here or at the manor. Cloya nods. That makes sense. Then, let's stop the bleeding first. I'll watch over you until the wound heals. She opens a wooden box, inside which are neatly arranged medicine bottles and bandages. Diello looks down at his bandaged arm. Thank you, Cloya. Diello says, I really thought he would make a wiser choice. Cloya holds Diello's hand. Myrta? Diello turns his head to look at her. Yes, we've known each other for a long time. Cloya is silent. Diello says, do you think someone you've known for years can't betray you? Yes, this is really terrible. Cloya's brow furrows. This is too much. If this continues, the whole plan will fall apart. It's time to get things straight. Cloya stands up. Diello, are you investigating the others who tried to escape to Cardiel? Diello replies, we'll have intelligence on them soon. Cloya nods. Good. The Agenta Intelligence Department is not to be trifled with, especially the head of intelligence, Liek. He is fiercely loyal to Agenta. He's known as the cheerful madman, a model of a loyal confidant. The Intelligence Department will handle their part, and we will be responsible for rooting out the traitors. Diello asks, puzzled, how? Cloya stands by Diello's bed. She reveals a confident smile. Just watch. People are whispering. I heard Mirda betrayed us. This is the first time a traitor has appeared since the era of the former Duke. A man signals his companion to be quiet. Shoo. But wasn't Cardiel planning to use Agenta after they escaped? Yes. I heard they just wanted Mirda's information and would kill him afterward. What a bunch of despicable guys. If this kind of rumor spreads, we might be able to catch a few more traitors. Diello says with admiration, what a brilliant idea. Two men are on their knees with their hands tied behind their backs. The Cloya in the original story has detailed memories of handling this kind of situation. I can use the rumors to make them realize that Cardiel isn't safe. That's why they try to run. But these people still won't talk. A knight bows and asks, my lord, what should we do? Should we dispose of them? Cloya stands beside Diello. Diello ponders for a moment. Cloya speaks up. If it's all right, I'd like to talk to them. May I? Diello turns his head. You may, but I doubt they'll talk easily, even when facing the threat of death. Besides killing, there are other ways to instill fear. Cloya turns to face Diello. First, prepare 2 rooms. It will be best if there's a glass wall in the middle, or at least something that lets sound pass through. Cloya reveals a cold smile. I'll show you how to make them talk without lifting a finger. She holds up 2 fingers in front of her chest. Watch closely. Diello looks down from above. Cloya, what are you planning to show me this time? With those shining eyes of yours. Cloya stands with her arms crossed, full of confidence. Caecilius stands with his hands down. Master, shall we proceed as ordered? Diello speaks calmly. Do as the priestess wishes. Everything is usual. The guards move, grabbing several men and quickly escorting them out. As expected of Agenta's intelligence department, terrifyingly efficient. They move like clockwork under Diello's command. Diello's hand rests on a captured man's head. It feels like the entire department is being played in the palm of Diello's hand. Only those with extremely high loyalty can enter this department, I suppose. Diello smiles to himself, thinking, gather an Agenta. Diello's gaze sweeps over, stopping on a woman with purple hair. She stands quietly with her arms crossed. Diello turns to her. Do you need anything else? Cloya looks up. No, this is enough. Then let's go. Cloya responds. Yes. Cloya's voice rings out. Listen carefully. From now on, the space you are in will gradually be filled with water. Many of you wanted to go to Cardiel. To avoid suspicion, you plan to escape one by one in order. This means you must have coordinated and agreed on that order, right? Diello's eyes are sharp. Cloya looks at her trembling hands. You're shaking. Why are you so afraid? Cloya Araz, that vicious woman. Despite her mediocre talent, she drowned the Araz family servants who dared to encroach on her. Hands struggling in the dark water, while Cloya looked down coldly. Her nature is cruel and vicious. This is the Cloya known to the world. But Cloya looks at the prisoners. She orders, increase the water flow. A subordinate bows his head. Yes, the water surges violently. One of the captured men cries out, ugh. Another man screams in the rushing water. Cloya's voice echoes. The water level will only drop for the side that speaks the names of the traitors. Cloya's fingers trace an elegant arc in the air, and the reduced water will flow to the other side. Ripples on the water's surface. 2 men are tied to stone pillars, their ankles chained to heavy stones. Cloya watches them calmly. Do you plan to stay silent forever? Cloya tilts her head slightly. Should I apply more pressure? Or perhaps, like you did at the Araz estate. Diello's gaze turns to the dark water below, where bodies float. End it all now. The 2 prisoners look terrified, remaining silent. Cloya gives the order. Turn the bat's water flow to maximum. The water gushes out instantly. A man howls in the torrent. The 2 men struggle in the water, the chains dragging them down. One of them shouts in despair, Ansel. Sarah is here too. Zubal. The other one chokes out, Ottavio. Ottavio. Cloya extends her hand, blue light gathering at her fingertips. Her body trembles slightly. The prisoners bob in the water, making a final plea. Ugh, please. Chloe looks at her hands with a blank expression. She tightly grips the hem of her skirt, her knuckles turning white. Chloe folds her hands. Her fingertips tremble slightly. She keeps her eyes lowered. It's as if she has never toyed with a life before. This is a new side of her. Diello covers half of his face with his hand. A hint of surprise flashes in his eyes. A prisoner twitches on the ground, chains clinking. There are no more. There really are no more. I swear. Chloe looks up. Is it 13 people in total? The attendant beside Diello confirms. Yes, absolutely. The recording personnel must be taking careful notes. A hand reaches out into the dazzling light. Blue energy wraps around the prisoner's ankles. The chains shatter instantly. The two men gasp for air in the water, looking around in terror. Chloe turns calmly. Diello, I haven't killed them yet, just in case there's more information. If you have more questions, you can continue. Diello places a hand on his chest. Shall I ask them personally? Chloe answers affirmatively. Yes, you are the head of the family. Diello, Chloe Araz looks at Diello. Diello, that face of yours won't help. Chloe's tone is firm. Rather than being torn apart while innocent, it's better to live in disgrace. Cold sweat breaks out on Diello's forehead. I'll try. Chloe turns toward a door. Then I'll go rest for a while. Chloe sighs softly. She watches Diello leave. Pierre is behind her. My lady, should you stay by Diello's side? Chloe turns her face. No, Diello needs to become stronger. Chloe takes a deep breath. Pull yourself together. You can do this. Chloe turns to the servant. Pierre, we have somewhere to go. Pierre follows. Where are we going, my lady? Chloe steps forward. The first floor of the main building. The place where the Fourth Night Order is stationed. I need to find out why the Fourth Night Order appeared on the first floor. The two prisoners suddenly sit up from the water, gasping for air. Sweat rolls down. Diello leans against the edge of the pool. He looks up at the ceiling and lets out a long breath. Diello looks at the prisoners in the water. Spare me. Please spare me. Master, I will live like a dead man. Diello turns his back to them. Since Chloe spared your lives, perhaps she wants to teach me mercy. A prisoner in the water says repeatedly, thank you, master. Flames ignite in Diello's eyes, and his palms are consumed by fire. The flames consume everything. The prisoners scream in the fire. It's so hot. Spare me. Diello's voice rings out coldly. As the priestess who seeks mercy wishes, you can choose to drown, or choose the other. Chloe examines the grand hall, lost in thought. Her brow furrows slightly. Strange. She looks around. This place used to be filled with knights from the fourth floor. Now it's back to first floor personnel. There must be a reason why the core members of Agenta, the fourth floor knights, were sent here. Chloe's gaze is sharp. I'm certain they were guarding this door before. A magnificent golden door stands before her, with intricate patterns, solemn and majestic. Chloe had turned around and looked at the servant behind her, Pierre. What's behind this door? Pierre answered that there was a path to the basement. Chloe repeated, the basement? He said it was a restricted area for servants, heavily guarded, which means there's something very important inside. Chloe reached out and pushed the door. The door swung open. A voice came from inside the door, Chloe. Chloe looked up abruptly. Diello was standing behind the door, looking down at her. Diello's tone was flat. Have you heard the story of the Wind Count? He allowed his wife to go anywhere, but forbade her from entering the basement. Chloe looked up. Diello, are you trying to play the role of that Wind Count? Diello's lips curved up slightly. A correction. It's the Wind Duke. He's warning me not to go in, desperately hiding something. The more he hides it, the stranger it gets. It's very strange, but if I force my way in, I might trigger a death ending. Chloe showed a docile smile. Since you said so, I won't go in. Did the interrogation of the traitor go well? Diello's eyes flickered. You could say that. Chloe had turned to leave. That's good. Diello, you keep up the good work. Diello turned his head. Chloe Araz, do you want to see the basement? Chloe's expression froze. What? Chloe asked in return. The Count in the story didn't want to open that door. A smile appeared on Diello's face. But I'm a duke. The two looked at each other and fell silent. His logic is truly absurd. However, since he personally gave permission, there's no reason to refuse. Chloe nodded. All right, let's go. Diello pushed the main door open. Diello was the first to step into the darkness. Chloe followed closely behind. The two walked down the steps. Candlelight was lit, illuminating the stone walls. Diello stopped walking. Chloe also halted her steps. The two stood side by side in the center of the basement. Chloe's gaze swept across the surroundings. Chloe's eyes settled. A statue stood before them. A statue. Diello explained, this is a statue for worshipping the sea god. This is too strange. In the basement of Aginta, there's actually a statue of the sea god. The people of Aginta, who revere their own abilities, would never believe in gods. A voice suddenly rang out, "Welcome, madam." Cloya was startled. She looked towards the sound. A strange man was standing by the statue. Cloya asked warily, "Who are you?" Lick bowed. "I am Lick, a loyal servant of Aginta, and also the head of the intelligence department." Lick's face was wreathed in smiles. "It is truly my honor to meet you, madam." Lick enthusiastically grabbed Cloya's hand. Cloya looked aghast, responding awkwardly, "Yes, it's nice to meet you." "So this is Diello's head of the intelligence department. He's the intelligence chief of Aginta." A cheerful madman. Diello continued, "But Lick, what are you doing here?" "I am praying for the peace of Aginta." Cloya looked baffled. "What? Praying to the sea god? A fanatical believer in Aginta? This is too suspicious." Cloya's eyes turned cold. "I don't know the specifics, but one thing is for sure. Diello is lying." A smile touched the corners of Diello's mouth. "Actually, this place was originally an underground prison." Cloya looked skeptical. "I know. This was set up temporarily. So why is it different now?" Diello explained, "I'm decorating this place, in case you need it. After all, Cloya, the Araz family believes in the sea god. Although for now, only the statue has been placed." Cloya responded in a low voice, I understand." Diello turned. "All right, Cloya, let's go up." Cloya answered obediently. "Okay, I feel like something is off, but it's probably not a big deal." Diello and Lick stood side by side. Both had inscrutable smiles on their faces. The shadows of the basement enveloped them. Night fell. A crescent moon hung above the clouds. Cloya said at disk, "It's late. Time to rest." A knock on the door. "Madam, I have something to report." Cloya, without looking up, said, "Come in." Pierre entered the room. "What is it?" Pierre's expression was grave. "There was a report of a fire at the annex. Fortunately, it didn't spread to the entire building." Cloya looked up sharply. "What? A fire in Aginta? How is that possible?" A cold smile touched Pierre's lips. "Madam, even a house dog will bite its master. It was an accident." "An accident, is it?" Pierre's calmness was unsettling. Mirda's betrayal. A series of traitors exposed and executed. And Aginta's intelligence department. The department that specializes in creating accidents. A fire that consumes everything, breaking out in the residence of a family that plays with fire. Could this really be a simple accident? All the clues fit together perfectly. It can't be a coincidence. Cloya covered her face with her hands. "All right, you may leave." Pierre bowed. "Yes, madam." Cloya paced in the empty room. Footsteps echoed. Cloya lay on the bed and sighed deeply. "I know Aginta is ruthless towards its enemies, but this still makes me uneasy." Cloya clutched the bedsheets tightly. If the time comes for me to leave this family, what will happen to me? Of course, I will continue to maintain a close relationship with Aginta." But Diello's figure appeared, and behind him stood the members of the family. Their expressions varied. Cloya's figure was solitary, surrounded by dark flowers and thorns. Flames ignited out of thin air, consuming Cloya's consciousness. The fire, so hot. She saw a child curled up in a corner. That child could be Diello. The fierce flames devoured everything. Tongues of fire licked the walls, burning the picture frames. Stone pillars collapsed with a roar. Debris rained down. Cloya staggered in the sea of fire. A scream of pain. Cloya wiped away her tears with one hand. The heat wave almost turned her to ash. So hot. A suffocating feeling gripped her throat. "I have to put out the fire first." She reached out her arm towards the burning ruins. A question surfaced in her mind. The power of water. "I can't use it. The moisture in the air has all evaporated. Anyway, I have to escape first. The building will collapse soon. Diello will be crushed by the rubble." How could this be? How do I know the child's identity and know what will happen next? A dream. So that's it. This is a dream. The nightmare that tormented the original Cloya. This must be it. Diello was curled up in the fire, his hands over his head, his body trembling with sobs. Cloya watched quietly. Thinking back, I was certain at that moment that the child was Diello. Cloya stood in the ruins, looking down at Diello. But Diello, who controls fire, has no reason to be trembling here. But Cloya took a step forward, her bare feet stepping onto the scorching floor. "I can't just leave him like this." Cloya squatted down, placing a hand gently on Diello's head. "Hey, let's get out of here." Diello slowly raised his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. His eyes were empty. Cloya's pupils contracted. Black hair, blue eyes. This child really is Diello. His lips trembled. I can't do it. The fire is too strong. I can't get out." Cloya picked Yellow up on her back. Flames surged behind her. Wait. Cloya struggled in the fire, her body being burned. Cloya sat up abruptly in bed, cold sweat soaking her nightgown. Diello. Diello was startled awake. What? Cloya Araz was lying side by side with Diello. Diello looked at her in confusion. Cloya opened her eyes. Diello was looking at her with concern. The present Diello. Diello asked softly, Cloya, did you have a nightmare? You're very pale. You were urgently calling my name in your sleep. Cloya's eyes were dazed. Yes, I dreamed about being trapped in a burning house with a little boy. Cloya forced herself to be calm. I have this dream occasionally, but it's not scary. I'm fine. You don't have to worry. Diello held Cloya's hand, his eyes gentle. That's good. To be honest, this is the first time I've had this dream since I transmigrated into this body. It was terrifyingly real, and it said that the original Cloya was often tormented by nightmares. It seems these dreams will continue. But whether I'm troubled by dreams or not, to prevent the nightmare from repeating in reality, I must protect this lily. Cloya's gaze sharpened. Speaking of which, Diello. Cloya's lips curved. It's about time for the meeting, isn't it? Diello stared at Cloya, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Diello's gaze lowered. You're right. The meeting is held every 3 years. The 3 great families gather to discuss how to protect their respective sacred grounds. But in recent years, this meeting has devolved into a battlefield, just an occasion to probe each other's strength and keep one another in check. Cloya's expression grew serious. So you're saying the crisis is imminent. The situation is tricky. Diello's lily. If it continues to be so vibrant, it will definitely arouse suspicion. What should I do? Duke Araz knows I'm a fake. He'll be furious that his plan is being obstructed. Duke Cardiel, on the other hand, thinks I'm real. He'll wonder why the weakest Diello in history is still refusing to accept Philo. He will definitely try everything to expose our plan. The vitality of the lily has become an obstacle. Before the meeting, at least one flower must wither. Her finger traced over Diello's chest. HNGH, Cloya. Diello groaned. Cloya's cheeks flushed. What kind of reaction is that? Anyone who didn't know better would think I was groping you. Cloya clenched her fists. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just thinking about how to make the lily wither before the meeting. Diello placed a hand on his chest. You're right. That's a critical problem. Cloya's eyes were firm. I think we must hide the lily for this meeting. Only then will the other 2 families let down their guard. Diello's gaze was deep. I agree. They will definitely try every means to confirm my lily. Cloya turned her face away. There's a limit to what cosmetics can cover, right? Diello closed his eyes. Yes, cosmetics can't hide the lily's magic. He's right. I can also feel a strange, magical power from the lily. The power of Philo, and the ancient power that obstructs the Diello family head strength. Among the 3 great families, anyone with magical power can sense the lily's magic. Therefore, simply hiding the flower won't solve the problem. Only by hiding the lily's magic can we completely deceive them. Cloya fell into thought. What should we do? A glint flashed in her eyes. Oh, there's a way. Diello looked at her doubtfully. Cloya spoke slowly. I know someone who can hide magical power, but there's one problem. Diello touched his finger to his lower lip. What problem? That person. He's currently in Araz territory. Nirua, a loyal servant of the Araz family, who dedicated his power and bloodline to them. He was once an agent of the Count Araz family, carrying out confidential missions. Nirua and his clansmen possess a unique camouflage ability, able to even hide magical power. He overheard Duke Araz's conspiracy to use a fake Philo. When he witnessed the current family head treating the illegitimate child, Cloya Araz, heartlessly as a mere tool, resentment took root in his heart. After the conspiracy was exposed, Nirua fled in a panic, only to be killed by another Araz clansman. This is the official record about him in the original story. Cloya lowered her eyelids, lost in thought. Wait, when exactly did Nirua overhear Duke Araz's plan? It's definitely not now. I remember he was caught on the eve of the meeting, but this timing is advantageous for us. Cloya raised her eyes to look at Diello. There's someone in the Araz family who can help us. His name is Nirua. With his camouflage ability that hides magical power, we can attend the meeting without alerting any of the families. Diello's eyes sharpened. I see. Cloya smiled confidently. So, I plan to win Nirua over to our side. Diello asked, do you have a special method? Kloya looked up at Diello. Nerua is probably loyal to the power and bloodline of Araz. He reveres the Araz bloodline above all else. Once he knows that I was sent to Aginta as just a fake philo, a tool for the Duke, a figure in a cloak appeared against a cold background, clenching its fists. That he will feel the sharp pain of betrayal. Diello turned his face away. But even so, he is still a loyal subject of Duke Araz. Will persuading him really work? Kloya gave a faint smile. Yes, fortunately, Nerua is loyal not to Duke Araz, but to Araz itself. A glowing family crest appeared. This is why I believe we have a chance. So let's find the best way to persuade him. Kloya raised her index finger. Before the meeting starts, we still have time. Diello's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of a smile in them. Are you going to teach me something again? Kloya straightened up. Of course. Last time I taught you how to spread fear. This time, I will show you how to persuade gently. The sun shone brightly outside the window. A male voice spoke up. According to the intelligence we've tracked, Nerua is being pursued by agents of the Araz family. A smile hung on Lick's lips. Diello asked, pursued. Lick bowed. Yes, master. It seems he learned one of Araz's secrets. Diello's eyes were sharp. Araz's secret? Kloya's eyes were calm. It's probably about me. Kloya put down her teacup. Nerua has likely discovered that I am a fake philo. Diello looked down. This is bad for me too. Lick's smile deepened, revealing sharp teeth. Then should we get rid of Nerua? Kloya smiled faintly. No, right now, we need Nerua's ability. If persuasion fails, it won't be too late to consider eliminating him then, Kloya added. We haven't tried to win him over yet, so we can't act rashly. Diello nodded. You're right. The real problem is how to persuade him, isn't it? Kloya's expression darkened. That's right. We absolutely cannot lose Nerua. He is the only one right now who can use the camouflage ability. A hint of determination flashed in Kloya's eyes. There's still a chance. Diello suggested, Kloya, why don't we send someone to bring Nerua here in advance? Kloya raised a hand to stop him. No, wait a little longer. A calculating smile touched her lips. He might be eliminated at that time. Diello's expression was grave. I've heard that the assassins of the Araz family are the most ruthless among the clans. In any case, Nerua won't die immediately. In the original story, Nerua kept fleeing until he was exhausted. He was caught only when he was on the verge of collapse. So we just need to save him before that. Then I can negotiate with him on the spot. If we stage a dramatic rescue at a critical moment, the chances of persuading him will increase greatly. Kloya's hand rested on Diello's. Diello looked up. Yes. Kloya whispered, this way, won't he be absolutely loyal to us? So, Kloya smiled lightly. This time, follow me again. I will teach you everything. Kloya turned. Lick came to his senses. Yes, my lady. Kloya gave the order, secretly track Nerua. Save him before the Araz family's people kill him. Lick fell silent, his eyes shifting. Kloya's voice came. Sir Lick, did you hear me? Lick snapped back to attention. Ah, yes. As you command. Lick bowed slightly. Understood. Kloya smiled with satisfaction. Very good. Diello's cheeks flushed, and he showed a slight smile. A letter was unfolded, the writing clear. Aginta has recently suffered a misfortune. To express condolences, the meeting will be held at Aginta's villa. Diello held the letter, a smile on his lips. Kloya, it seems this meeting will be held at Aginta's villa. Kloya was thoughtful. Oh, that's perfect. It's better to be on Aginta's turf than elsewhere. Diello said, yes, the date is set for 1 week from now. Diello looked at Pierre. Pierre, start preparing for the meeting immediately. Pierre bowed and accepted the order. As you command, master. Diello's eyes sharpened. Lick, where's Nerua now? Lick smiled. In the Dyla Pass. And he's about to be caught by the Araz family's people. Kloya's eyes widened. Now is our chance. Kloya stood up abruptly, her hands on the table. Diello, get ready to leave. Kloya's gaze was burning. We must save Nerua first. Her smile was brilliant, yet held a cold, sharp edge. Nerua was running through the forest, his steps heavy, crushing the dry branches underfoot with every step. Memories surfaced, a cold oath echoing. Our assassin family has served the Araz family for generations. The guards were chasing behind him, their footsteps getting closer. Nerua stopped abruptly. Nerua panted heavily, blood trickling from his temple. Besides you, all our clansmen have died in missions. Do not resent it. It was all thanks to the holy water of the Araz family that we were able to survive. Nerua recalled the life-saving blue light. So our family must protect Araz. A flash of sword light. A guard's body was pierced by blue energy. Nerua let out a pained roar. But Nerua stumbled and fell with a muffled groan. There are always people in this world not worth serving. The guard captain panted, "Finally caught you, you slippery loach. You're going to be dragged off to be executed anyway. Stop your pointless struggles." The guard captain's eyes were contemptuous. "You must die quietly." Nerua gritted his teeth. "You bastards. You must always be vigilant." Nerua's eyes burned with anger. "You know about Duke Ara's filthy plan, yet you still choose to ignore it?" The guards looked at each other and fell silent. The guard captain sneered. "Are these your last words? Like father, like son." The guard captain drew his sword, its tip pointing at Nerua. "You talk too much. You trash." Nerua roared. "Don't you dare insult my family. Don't you dare insult my father, who gave his life for Araz. We protect Araz, not for parasites like you." The guard captain sneered. "I don't know about your ancestors, but your father. Wasn't he killed by that woman during the attack? That woman was Duke Araz's fiancée." Nerua faced the guards. At that time, the Duke and Duchess of Aginta were both dead. The ducal manor couldn't spare any attention. "My father was disguised as a commoner and murdered. Before my father died, the only person who had seen his disguise was Duke Araz." Nerua's eyes were sharp. "You think I don't know?" The guard captain remained silent. His eyes flickered. "And one more thing. The Duke Araz family cruelly murdered the Aginta couple, then mercilessly abandoned my loyal father. They even sold off the illegitimate daughter who carried Aginta blood, leaving her to fend for herself. You don't deserve the loyalty of your retainers." Nerua trembled all over. "You animals." Nerua clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. "Duke Araz and scum like you are not worthy of being part of Araz." Nerua's eyes were wide with fury. "Stop defiling Araz." The guard captain was expressionless. The guard stood motionless. The guard captain raised his sword. "I was going to give you a quick death with my sword." The guard captain sheathed his sword. "But I can't stand people who talk too much." The guard captain gathered blue water currents in his palm. "Let's have the hungry wolves finish you." Nerua's pupil shrank. What? Blue water currents swirled around the guards. Where are these guys getting this power from? Nerua's eyes were filled with shock and doubt. Could it be? We're close to the source. Golden light pierced through the forest, illuminating a deep canyon. Below the canyon, a river rushed by. Damn it, I was so focused on escaping, I forgot my direction. Nerua stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down at the river below. I overlooked the river that flows through the Dila Pass. As long as the Araz water source is nearby, even if their individual abilities are weak, they will become stronger due to the power of the source. My situation is now very disadvantageous. The guards raised their hands, blue energy coiling around their bodies. But I can't give up. Nerua gritted his teeth, gathering a faint stream of water in his hands. The guard captain looked at Nerua. Are you trying to use the power of the source to fight back? Your effort is commendable, but useless. The guard captain's eyes were cold. Attack Nerua. A powerful current of water struck suddenly. Nerua let out a scream of pain as his body was violently thrown back. Nerua let out a muffled groan, gritting his teeth in pain. Nerua's eyes flew open, and he gasped. The water gathered in front of him, coalescing into the form of a giant wolf. The water wolf roared, its voice shaking the forest. The water wolf lunged at Nerua, its great maw open, fangs bared. Nerua clenched his fists, preparing for the impact. A voice rang out. Stop! A giant blue crest appeared out of thin air, blocking Nerua. The water wolf crashed into the crest and instantly froze. The crest dissipated. The water wolf turned into countless water droplets and scattered on the ground. Nerua looked up, his eyes filled with confusion. The guard captain was dumbfounded. The guards were terrified. What? An invisible force seized the guard captain, lifting him into the air. The water currents stripped away from his body. A hand reached out, passing through the shattered water screen. Nerua raised his head, his eyes focusing. That person is. Cloya appeared, surrounded by a powerful water magic. Come here. The water wolves dissipated into pure magical energy, swirling around Cloya. Cloya, Araz, Nerua muttered to himself. Cloya smiled. She had seized control of the water from the guards. This meant her power far surpassed theirs. The guards retreated in terror. Impossible. The guard captain roared, damn it, what are you all standing there for? Everyone worked together to take back control. The scar on the guard captain's face twitched. Don't waver. A lowly, illegitimate daughter can't be stronger than us. The water was forcibly stripped from the guards. The guard captain's eyes widened. I don't know what trick you used, with that pathetic ability of yours. The guard captain gritted his teeth. How is this possible? The water wolves wailed as their bodies gradually dissipated, turning into formless magic. Chloe's eyes were cold. Weren't those your words just a moment ago? Devour him completely. A cold smile played on Chloe's lips. Water danced wildly around her, like a magnificent storm. The guard captain let out a pained roar as his body was pierced by the water, blood splattering on the spot. Nerua, remember one last thing. Save me. Nerua leaned against a tree trunk, his eyes vacant. A voice from his memory echoed. If you find someone worthy of becoming the master of Araz. Chloe stood with her back to Nerua, water swirling around her. Then present the recommendation to them. Chloe smiled. Nerua, you are the last heir of the Shadow Sword family, aren't you? Chloe smiled, her face in profile. The afterglow of the sunset filled the forest. Nerua looked up at the sky, a trace of exhaustion on his face. Nerua lowered his hands. Yes, I am Nerua. Thank you for saving me. A hooded figure watched from behind a tree. I know, it's difficult to reveal your identity under these circumstances. Beneath the hood, Dielo's eyes were firm. So thank you for telling me the truth. Chloe smiled slightly. Do you know who I am? Nerua's cheeks flushed. You're Miss Chloe Araz. No, that's wrong. Chloe's eyes were calm. I'm Chloe Aginta. Nerua's pupils contracted. He stared at Chloe in shock. Nerua's mouth hung slightly open in confusion, at a loss for what to do. Chloe slowly walked towards him. I'll be direct. You already know my secret, don't you? Nerua turned his face away, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Chloe's expression was serious. You know, it will be troublesome if this secret gets out. Nerua's eyes sharpened. Such strong, killing intent. Chloe stood quietly. He's wary of me, suspecting I'm with Duke Araz. Nerua's hand rested on his dagger, the blade slightly unsheathed. Sunlight pierced through the forest. Nerua was surrounded by a group of guards in red. Chloe raised her hand. Don't move. Nerua looked up at her. Miss Chloe, are you really going to execute that plan? A cold smile played on Chloe's lips. You've finally asked the question I've been waiting for. He's asking if I'm going to use the blood of Araz. In other words, he's confirming whether I'm on the Duke's side. This is the most important part. It decides whether I can win over Nerua. I've said it before. I'm not Chloe Araz. Her fingertips tapped lightly, and water gathered. I'm Chloe Aginta. The giant spirit of a water wolf appeared behind her, roaring as it looked down on Nerua. Diella watched everything calmly. As you can see, I have joined forces with Aginta. I will use the fake philo plan you know about to strike at Araz. I have no intention of being used as a tool and then discarded. In other words, I'm not Duke Araz person. Nerua's gaze wavered. Cold sweat trickled down his cheek. Chloe saw it. As expected, he swayed. Now, I'll tell you what you want to hear. The power of Araz should be used to protect Araz. Duke Araz would not hesitate to use his own bloodline, even if I am his illegitimate daughter. A person like that cannot genuinely care for Araz. That's why I don't trust the current Duke Araz. A light reflected in Nerua's pupils. He listened quietly. Chloe continued. I've heard the Shadow Sword family is fiercely loyal to Araz. Chloe extended her hand. Duke Araz doesn't recognize loyalty. He even wanted to kill you. I believe you were right not to submit to him. Nerua was silent, his hand by his side clenching slightly. Chloe looked up, a water spirit circling beside her. I don't know how you saw me in the past, but now I can protect you from the Duke's harm. Water surged, forming a huge protective barrier. Chloe's gaze was firm. Knight Nerua. Nerua looked up, his eyes reflecting Chloe and the water spirit behind her. Chloe raised her hand, the power of water erupting in her palm. Please join me. A monstrous wave surged, water swirling around Chloe and rushing to the sky. Water splashed everywhere. Chloe's eyes were sharp, power surging around her. Nerua was dumbfounded. What? Chloe's gaze locked onto Nerua. 4 generations, you have guarded the blood of Araz. You are an upright and loyal vassal who has never betrayed your honor. Why not follow another Araz now? The water spirit transformed into a giant dragon, coiling behind Chloe, roaring as it stared at Nerua. She extended her hand. Follow me. Nerua gazed at Chloe, a hint of determination flashing in his eyes. Nerua knelt on one knee, his right hand on his chest. If you need my meager abilities, I will gladly follow. The water spirit dissipated. Chloe looked down at Nerua. Success. A satisfied smile appeared on Chloe's face. Very good. She extended her hand. Nerua looked up, his gaze firm as he looked at her. Chloe looked down at Nerua. I'm counting on you, Nerua. Nerua rose and took Chloe's outstretched hand. Nerua smiled. I look forward to working with you, Miss Chloe. Chloe smiled back. Welcome to Aginta. Their two hands clasped tightly, symbolizing the formation of a new pact. Sunlight dappled the forest floor, and leaves fluttered down. Diello stood under a tree. Diello's cheeks were slightly flushed, his heart racing. Diello, Chloe's expression was grim. There's not much time. We'll go on horseback. Have the rear guard bring the carriage. Hoofbeats sounded. Chloe galloped away on her horse, her figure disappearing into the woods. Chloe reined in her horse. Found them. I see Nerua and Araz. Chloe stared into the distance. Strange. I feel like I can take them on by myself. Is it because I'm close to the source? I'll handle this alone. You all just watch carefully. Diello's heart skipped a beat. Chloe's figure appeared. Chloe. Chloe's face came into view. You really? Chloe smiled. Diello, this way. Diello's cheeks flushed, his gaze averted. Yes. Chloe introduced him to Diello. This is Lord Nerua. Diello took a step forward. Hello, I am Diello Aginta, head of the Aginta family. Nerua sized up Diello. So this is Diello Aginta. As frail as the rumors say. Nerua looked up. I am Nerua. The two released their clasped hands. Chloe looked at Diello. Diello, let's head back to Aginta first. The sun is about to set. Diello replied. All right, the carriage should be here soon. Chloe turned and walked ahead, with Diello following behind. Footsteps echoed in the forest. Nerua watched their backs and fell silent, his gaze distant. A group of people in red hoods walked behind. Chloe turned her head and whispered to Nerua. It feels strange, doesn't it? The atmosphere in Aginta is very different from Araz. Chloe's lips curled. It's better than being dead, right? Nerua opened his eyes, his gaze firm. No matter the situation, I will adapt and endure. Chloe's expression softened. Since you've made up your mind, you're always welcome here. Chloe added with a serious expression, but the problem is, others might not trust you so quickly. A soldier said, from here on, you'll go separately. We will escort Lord Nerua. Chloe replied. All right. A guard stepped forward. Lord Nerua, please cooperate with us for a simple inspection. Nerua replied calmly. You may. The carriage started moving slowly. We're off. The wheels rolled forward. The setting sun dyed the sky red. If I want Aginta to accept Nerua, that method is the only way. I must use the magic contract that Mierda once used. Bloody runes spread across the parchment, a magnificent dagger hovering above it. Chloe lowered her eyelids. Diello's face was beside her, his expression complicated. Chloe stood in the light. Diello, I have a favor to ask. Diello smiled and bowed. Yes, Chloe, please speak. Chloe's gaze was earnest. The magic contract you once signed with Mierda, may I use it? I want to modify the terms to apply to Nerua and me. Diello's face fell. You don't mean to sign the contract yourself, do you? Chloe's eyes were firm. Yes, this is the guarantee of complete trust in Nerua. We also need to confirm his abilities. Besides, it's to get the people of Aginta to accept him. The contract is necessary. Diello's expression was grave. Chloe, you know that contracts are heavy things. They are both binding and terrifying. The jewel on Chloe's chest shimmered. I know, but the gathering is approaching. Afterwards, the other two families will surely doubt whether Diello still has the loyalty of his vassals. Two shadows loomed, one belonging to Araz, the other to Cartier. Diello placed a hand on his chest. In that case, I will be the one to sign the contract. Chloe's eyes widened. What? Why would you do that, Diello? This is Araz's problem. Diello's eyes were calm. This is also to hide the weakness of the head of Aginta. So it should be me. Chloe slammed the table. No, be quiet. The contract with Mierda is enough. Diello fell silent. Chloe turned. Pierre, prepare the contract with Nerua immediately. Pierre bowed and accepted the order. As you command. Once the contract is written, we must immediately borrow Nerua's power. There isn't much time. This is the Aginta contract. A quill pen rested on the parchment. Nerua sat on the sofa. I've long heard of it, but seeing it in person is even more amazing. Chloe's voice came. That's right. It's a feature that Araz doesn't have. Read the contract carefully. Nerua picked up the contract. The words came into view. Once signed, Nerua will swear absolute loyalty, sealed by blood, never to betray. In return, Chloe will protect him. The one who breaks the contract will be devoured by the power of Araz. Nerua replied calmly. Understood. Pierre approached, holding a dagger. Until the contract is complete, Lord Nerua will not be able to use any weapons. Therefore, I will supervise the entire process. Nerua looked up. I know. The dagger pricked a finger. A drop of blood fell. blood splattered onto the parchment. Nirua picked up the quill and signed his name with his own blood. Nirua wiped his finger with a handkerchief. The signing is complete. The contract glowed faintly on the table. Pierre stepped forward with the dagger. "My lady, allow me to assist you." Chloe looked up. "No need. I'll do it myself. It won't be so scary if I do it myself." Chloe took the dagger and took a deep breath. "It's fine." Diello's expression was tense. "Chloe, careful." The blade sliced through and blood splattered. Chloe let out a muffled grunt. Blood oozed from her fingertip. "It's sharper than I thought. Just a light graze." Diello immediately stood up. "Chloe, are you all right?" "Let me see." Chloe held Diello's hand. "Wait, let's finish the contract first." Chloe picked up the quill. The nib scratched across the parchment. Chloe put down the pen. "Done." The parchment was enveloped in water, hovering in the air. The contract is complete. The water dissipated. The contract turned into specks of light and finally vanished. The contract lay quietly on the table, the text and bloodstains clearly visible. The contract will react according to elemental power. Chloe pressed on her wound, the handkerchief soaked with blood. Just as the contract burned, when Mierda broke it, if Nirua breaks it, the contract will dissolve in water. Chloe looked up at Nirua. "Well then, from now on, I'll be in your care." "Nirua." Nirua was slightly startled. What is it?" Chloe gave the order. "Hide the weakness of the head of Aginta." Chloe and Nirua looked at each other. Chloe's voice sounded, "You know, I'm not Philo. I can't erase the lily petals. The gathering of the three great families is coming soon. We must hurry." Nirua stood amidst a sea of blue flowers, gathering water elements at his fingertips. "Understood. I'll try." Diello gently held Chloe's hand. "Chloe, your wound is deeper than I thought." The handkerchief was soaked with blood. Chloe replied softly, "Indeed." Chloe tried to pull her hand back. "I'll have Neos treat it, so?" Diello held her hand tighter, his gaze firm. "In the meantime, I will work with Nirua to erase the lily mark. Don't worry about this." Chloe turned and instructed Nirua. "I'll leave this to you." Nirua bowed respectfully. "Yes, please rest assured." Chloe left quickly. Diello sat upright, his expression calm. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Diello's gaze darkened. Diello sensed something was off. "What's with this atmosphere?" The priestess seems to have explained the situation on the way. Diello's eyes sharpened. "Aginta does not welcome outsiders. You sign a contract and earn a little trust, but that's all." Diello leaned back in his chair. "I will test you in my own way. If you dare to harm the priestess or Aginta." Diello's killing intent was palpable. "I will cut off your head without hesitation. I can instinctively feel it." Diello Aginta's true nature. A composure that only a predator possesses. His image, until now, has been a facade, a deliberately hidden disguise. Nirua's Adam's Applebob. "Do you think my master knows your true face?" Diello sat upright, saying nothing. Diello's lips were tightly pressed. Strange. Countless blurry faces flashed by. "I've deceived countless people, including Chloe. But for some reason, I suddenly feel resistant. To be more precise, deceiving Chloe makes me feel uncomfortable." Diello was lost in thought. Since when did it start? In his memory, Chloe's gaze was burning. "Let's get married. Just for a year." Chloe in a wedding dress. He gazed at her with a smile. "Be bolder." She whispered softly. "Try to fall in love with me." Deeper. Knowing it was all an act, greed quietly grew. Diello's hand reached for a strand of Chloe's hair. He longed to be closer. Diello held Chloe's hand, their fingers intertwined. He wanted to possess more. Diello's hand caressed the back of Chloe's neck, pulling her closer. "I want to be loved for who I am. I want to seduce her as the real Diello Aginta." Nirua's gaze was deep. "Do you intend to keep deceiving my master?" Diello's face was turned to the window, the light outlining his profile. "For now, yes." Diello gave a faint smile. "The priestess has been deceived by him too." Nirua said nothing, just watching quietly. Nirua stood up, revealing the lily mark. "Stand still. I will erase the magic." Diello unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the mark on his chest. Diello straightened his collar. "How is it?" He looked up. "Can it be hidden?" The lily mark on Diello's chest flickered in and out of view amidst the flame-like magic. Nirua stared at Diello. "So this is the head's lily. I can certainly feel a special divine power." Nirua confirmed. "It can be hidden well." The two looked at each other, the atmosphere subtle. Nirua lowered his eyes. "Then, may I begin?" Diello nodded slightly. "Begin." Nirua placed one hand on Diello's chest. A soft white light rose from Diello's feet, enveloping his entire body. The light gathered, condensing into a giant lily mark, hovering in the air. The mark slowly shrank. The light dissipated. Diello opened his eyes. Nero calmly announced, "It's done." Diello looked down at his chest. It seems what the priestess said was true. Diello adjusted his collar. "Good work." Nero said, "There is one thing I must tell you." Diello's face was expressionless. Nero's eyes were cold. "I will eliminate anything that might harm my master, even if that person is Diello, the Duke of Aegina himself." This warning was also a test. Diello was silent for a moment. He curled his lip. Good. Protect your master with your life. That is the demand of the contract." Nero turned. "Even if you didn't say it, I would do so. Now I'll take my leave. I will never do anything to harm Chloe." Diello's hand rested on the window pane. "Never." Diello's eyes were firm as he gazed into the distance through the window. Sunlight filled the manor. "Is it really so?" Chloe asked with a smile. "Is Diello's lily hidden well?" "That's such a relief." Sir Nero played an important role. Pierre said, "Yes, only one petal is hidden." Chloe chuckled. "Compared to deceiving two family heads, losing just one is more natural. I feel much more relaxed. Now I just need to get through the meeting safely and sign the contract for the Daisy Forest." Pierre bowed slightly. "My lady, I have something to report." Chloe looked up. What is it?" "The deal has been canceled. Someone bought the Daisy Forest for a higher price." Chloe's eyes widened. The teacup in Chloe's hand nearly fell. "What?" "I was just about to sign the documents." "Is there any business ethics?" "Who on earth was it?" The door was pushed open. Diello had a smile on his face. "Chloe, may I come in?" Chloe faced Diello. Diello walked to the desk. "You're early again today." The atmosphere is a bit serious." "Your expression, too." Chloe's expression was weary. Diello smiled. "Should I come back later?" No need." Pierre opened the door and left. Diello turned to the side and asked, "You look very upset. What happened?" Chloe sighed. Chloe slumped onto the table. "The forest I had my eye on for a long time was bought out from under me." Diello crossed his arms. "Oh, is that so? But why did you want to buy that forest?" "Because in the future, a huge waterway will be open there. It can make a fortune. My comfortable retirement depends on it." She could only scream these words in her heart. Chloe covered her face with her bandaged hand. "First, it's far from the territories of Arras and Cartier. Second, there's a large river in the forest. The air is fresh, and the environment is quiet, suitable for living. Although the magical beast would be annoying, that can be solved using the river water." Chloe's finger traced the map. Diello was thoughtful. A river, good air, quiet, suitable for living. Diello repeated these words in his mind. Diello leaned over and pointed to another spot on the map. "How about here?" Chloe was stunned. "This is..." She looked at Diello before her, then back at the map. Diello's finger was resting on the forest of the Aegina Manor. Diello showed a confident smile. "I'll persuade him properly. You don't have to worry." Chloe looked troubled. "No, Sai, you're so good to me, I feel like a fraud." Diello took out a stack of letters from his coat. "More importantly, Chloe, the heads of the other families will arrive at the Aegina Manor tomorrow morning." The letters scattered on the table. "These are notices of their entry into Aegina territory." Chloe picked up a letter. "Tomorrow is the day of the decisive battle. Our goal is..." Chloe and Diello looked at each other and smiled. "Thought to make our opponents lower their guard. We just need to act as we usually do." The magnificent manor stood tall, various banners hanging, displaying the family's majesty. The day of the meeting has arrived. Sunlight pierced through the leaves, dappling the stone path. The crisp sound of hoofbeats rang out. A convoy of carriages slowly approached. Cartier's carriage was the first to arrive. The carriage stopped, its wheels crunching on the ground. A leather shoe stepped out of the carriage, landing firmly. Cartier stepped down from the carriage, followed by two ladies. The passion between you two is overwhelming." He smiled. "Congratulations again on Aegina's happy occasion." Diello and Chloe stood side by side. Diello smiled in response. "Thank you. It must have been a long journey. I'll show you to your quarters to rest." Chloe nodded. "All right, see you at the meeting hall, then." She turned to leave, but her gaze was drawn to a girl beside Cartier. Who is that child?" "Duke Syatt and Philo. Their relationship is more like a business partnership, brought together in pursuit of Cartier's prosperity and power. So, that child shouldn't be Lord Syatt's daughter." "Who is she?" The mint green-haired girl looked up, her eyes innocent. Hoofbeats grew closer. Wheels rolled over the ground. Another carriage arrived. Chloe's back stiffened. She slowly turned her head, cold sweat beading on her temple. "He's here. Duke Arras." Arras descended the steps, smiling and waving. Arras spoke. "Chloe, are you well?" Chloe lowered her head slightly. "Of course." Arras looked up. "Duke Diello, have you been well?" Arras' smile deepened. Diello replied, I'm well, thanks to you. An ominous light flickered on his chest. Philo's magic has weakened. That's. Araz patted Diello's shoulder. A great fortune. Araz's smile remained. Araz turned to Cloya. I'll head in first, then. Araz's hand rested on Cloya's, so he won't leave. Araz leaned in and whispered, see you later. A blue light shone in his palm as he pressed it against Cloya's back. The light pierced through her clothes. Cloya's body shuddered. Cloya gritted her teeth, using her water control to put pressure on the wound on her back. She trembled all over. Diello's eyes sharpened. Cloya. He darted forward and supported the swaying Cloya. Diello supported Cloya's shoulder. Are you all right? Cloya forced a smile. I'm Fine. I can bear it. Araz's voice came from nearby. Oh my, it seems my daughter is nervous. It's best to rest well before the meeting. Araz turned to leave, but he didn't go far. He just stood there quietly. At least, you should say hello to the sister you haven't seen in a long time. Araz turned to Pontus. You two have a chat. Pontus. Of course, father. What kind of greeting is this? He's using his magic to pressure my back. Cloya gritted her teeth in endurance. Damn it. Araz turned to leave. Have a good chat and then come back. Pontus replied. Yes. Cloya watched Pontus approach. Pontus smiled. Cloya, you two seem to be on good terms. Pain pierced her back. Cloya endured it. Can I withstand Pontus's power too? Pontus reached out and held Cloya's arm. Cloya's body tilted backward. Pontus's hand rested on Cloya's back. A gentle blue energy flowed in. Pontus smiled. Rest well. Pontus turned to leave. See you later. Diello asked Cloya urgently. Are you all right? Cloya's eyes widened. Yes, I'm Fine. I can't feel anything. Could it be Pontus's water power? Cloya's consciousness sank into a vast ocean. Pontus's power is on par with mine. The water currents swirled around her. A warm power enveloped her. The law of water currents is simple. Those with weaker water control will be helplessly defeated when threatened by a stronger user. Araz controlled a powerful water current. He is the designated next head of the family. Cloya had thought his water control ability would be stronger than her own. But Cloya stared at the water currents. I can't feel anything. Water sources are everywhere in this villa. The water currents aren't torturing me. Instead, they make me feel at ease. Cloya's lips curved up slightly. Pontus's water control ability is not significantly different from mine. Diello watched her with concern. My lady, are you all right? Cloya returned to smile. Much better than I imagined. A short rest before the meeting will be enough. Although I wasn't affected by Pontus, Duke Araz's influence remains. Let's go too. Cartier said, but magic-using beasts have appeared. Araz replied, but those beasts did not appear in Araz. Diello reported. Cartier's defenses had no issues this time, like the other two families. Magic-using beasts appeared in Agenta. Cartier's eyes sharpened. If my Philo hadn't awakened, fighting the magic beasts that appeared in the desert would have been quite difficult. Cartier turned to Diello. Duke Diello, I thought you would also be in a tough fight. I was planning to send reinforcements immediately when you requested support. But it seems Duke Diello's fire control ability is much more formidable than the rumors suggest. Cartier smiled. Behind the gentle tone and relaxed expression was a sharp attack. Cartier's eyes narrowed slightly. His cold nature was showing. The head of the Cartier family is a difficult opponent. I must not let him discover my powerful water control ability. Diello conceded. Because of that beast, I did indeed face a tough battle on the battlefield. Cartier turned to Diello. I heard the Duchess of Diello also participated in the battle. Diello replied, yes, that's right. Araz and Pontus were simultaneously shocked. But Cloya smiled. I barely managed to block it using my source power. Source power, the Araz family's ability to instantly unleash immense power by sacrificing life force and infusing that power into the user's blood. The Agenta family's rampage that burns the whole body. Unleashing immense power is also a type of source power, although the Agenta family's rampage cannot be stopped. Just like the Araz families, the greater the risk, the stronger the power. I just need to find an excuse, say the battle was urgent, that even the head of the Agenta family couldn't control it. So I had no choice but to use my source power. When I made the contract with Nerua, I was left with a deep wound on my hand. It fits the story perfectly. This was my first time on the battlefield, and my first time using source power. When I opened my eyes, I was already lying on a soft bed. It was Diello, who had moved me to a safe place. Diello held Cloya's bandaged hand. You worked hard, my lady. Cloya thought to herself. Good acting. Diello gazed at her. You've truly worked hard. Cloya was slightly taken aback. He didn't have to act so realistically. Pana sneered. It seems the Duke of Aginta loves my sister very much. But it's fortunate there were no losses. No losses. Cloya's eyes turned cold. Using source power that shortens one's life is a loss in itself. Like father, like son. Of course, I didn't actually use it. The Duchess, after using the life-shortening source power, was bedridden for a long time. Cloya's pupils shrank. Diello muttered. Duke Pontus, must you really say that? He suddenly grabbed Cloya's wrist. The force was so great. It felt like it would crush her bones. Pontus's cheeks flushed. No, it's only natural to be worried. Diello slowly raised his eyes. His gaze as cold as ice. Cloya's cheeks flushed. Her breathing quickened. Cartier covered his mouth with his hand, his eyes playful. Pontus said in a low voice. It was a slip of the tongue. Araz turned aside. The meeting is over. Let's go directly to the banquet hall. Diello turned and left, his back straight. Understood. Let's go. Cloya watched Diello. Diello, why was he so tense? The seafood comes from the boundless sea. It's delicious, just like gathering food from Araz, endless forest. Cloya held a wine glass. The banquet atmosphere was quite harmonious. Maintaining peace during the meeting is indeed an unwritten rule. Cloya, Araz, no, Cloya, Miss Aginta. A voice called out. Cloya straightened at the sound. Hello, I am Aileen Cartier. A green-haired girl curtsied, holding her skirt. She was the child who was with Duke Diello earlier. Cloya smiled in response. It's a pleasure to meet you. Aileen Cartier hesitated. Actually, there's something I've been wanting to ask you for a while. Cloya gestured for her to continue. What is it? Aileen Cartier was a bit hesitant, unsure she should ask. Cloya encouraged her gently. It's all right. Feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer. Aileen Cartier finally spoke. Uncle said that even if you're married, you'd need time to develop feelings. Besides, the Aginta and Araz families have never been on good terms. Cloya pondered. Uncle. Her surname is Cartier. Why does she call Diello uncle? Is it a more distant relation than I thought? Cloya closed her eyes, a helpless smile on her lips. He's right. Aileen Cartier's voice was clear. Then, do you truly love the Duke of Aginta? Miss Cloya. For a moment, the clamor of the banquet hall seemed to cease. The gazes of the surrounding nobles shot towards her. Cloya was slightly startled. A sudden, bombshell question. Everyone held their breath and waited. Diello stood behind Cloya, his hands resting on the back of her chair. If we weren't in love, we wouldn't be this close. Miss Aileen. Aileen Cartier's cheeks flushed. She cupped her face with her hands and let out a suppressed squeal. Aileen Cartier pressed on. Then Miss Cloya, when did you fall in love with the Duke of Aginta? Cloya lowered her eyelids, lost in thought. A memory surfaced of a blazing golden light. It was her runaway power, and also the proof of his salvation. Cloya recalled that moment. Diello, standing on the golden water, looking down at her. We fell in love with each other on the water. In that moment, it felt as if we were the only two people in the world. Both of us. I unconsciously said we. If I say we, it means Diello fell in love with me too. Cloya looked at Diello. It was also on that day that I realized for the first time that water, which I had always seen as an enemy, could have a different face. Cloya's heart raced. The sight was dazzling, making it impossible to look away. Aileen Cartier and the other nobles burst into cheers, squealing with excitement. Araz raised his glass to the sweet newlyweds. Cheers! The glasses clinked crisply. Cloya's mind went blank. What's this? Diello was smiling, a hint of triumph in his eyes. Cloya's cheeks grew warm. Her heart skipped a beat. It sounds like he's really in love with me. This time, beasts also appeared in the Aegina desert. Cloya sat beside Diello. Diello, you seemed very agitated at the meeting earlier. You seemed genuinely angry. Diello's gaze lowered. He leaned closer to Cloya and whispered. Of course, it was genuine. But getting angry like that might attract attention, because even I was surprised by your temper. Cloya raised a hand to cover her mouth in shock. Diello's eyes darkened, as if he were truly enraged. Diello gently caressed Cloya's cheek. If anyone says I'm acting strangely, tell them I'm head over heels for you. Diello's lips were about to touch Cloya's. Tell them I've become bold, completely unlike Diello. Aginta. Diello leaned closer to Cloya. Tell them I'm so dazzled by you. I can barely notice anything else around me. Diello kissed Cloya. Because I am utterly captivated by you. Chloe gripped her wine glass. His actions were so real. It's just an act. It's supposed to be an act. Diallo gazed at her, a smile in his eyes. Chloe's glass tilted, spilling the crimson wine. Are we both drunk? Chloe covered her mouth with her hand, her heart racing. Something hotter than alcohol is intoxicating me. Diallo raised his glass, a smile playing on his lips. The night was deep. A bright moon hung high in the sky. Araz sat on the sofa. Pontus, did you feel it too? The magic of the lily has weakened. Pontus's face was shown in profile. Yes, I felt it. He broke into an ecstatic smile. Chloe succeeded. She successfully seduced Diallo Agenta. The purple-haired man's eyes were contemptuous. The lily is starting to wither. Diallo Agenta's downfall is imminent. He won't be able to truly awaken as the head of the family. The Agenta bloodline will end with this generation. Araz touched his chin. As long as I kill everyone with Agenta blood, I, Kalius, can become the one and only Agenta. I will seize the position of head of the Araz family and obtain the essence of the Agenta's power. Then, the strongest family head will be born, a being who can wield both water and fire. At that time, dealing with the strongest side in history. Cartier will also be a piece of cake. However, even if she used the power of the source, can a Chloe, who can't even control the power of water, really stop the sea beasts? It depends on how much power of the source she could draw out. The man with Araz turned his face aside, but I have my doubts about that too. He clenched his fist. Did you call for me? Araz commanded. Go ask Chloe how much of the source's power she used. The subordinate bowed and accepted the order. As you command. Pontus turned to look out the window. I need to verify how much of Diallo Agenta's lily has disappeared. Araz crossed his arms. Are you planning to ask Chloe directly? Pontus's eyes were cold. No, after what happened at the Araz estate, I can't trust her. She might just be lying. To gain her trust. Araz was thoughtful. That makes sense. What do you plan to do then? A ruthless glint flashed in Pontus's eyes. We just need to strip Diallo and confirm it ourselves. Chloe said, as long as we get through the last day of the gathering safely, everything will be over. Diallo smiled at her. You've worked hard. Chloe. There was an urgent knock on the door. Lord of the family. Diallo stood up. It's so late. I'll go see what's happening. Two subordinates stood at the door, looking flustered. The formal attire you're to wear tomorrow is missing. Diallo's pupils contracted sharply. Chloe sat up straight in bed. The last item on the gathering's agenda is to attend the banquet wearing newly tailored formal attire. This symbolizes casting aside the old and starting anew with a fresh mindset. But that attire is missing. We don't have time to meticulously make a new one, like we would at our main estate. Go find the best local tailor. The subordinates bowed. As you command. Chloe walked forward. Diallo, what on earth is going on? We've never lost formal attire before. Diallo raised a hand to his chin. The attire is gone. Naturally, we need to find a new tailor. A custom-made suit requires my measurements. And it happens just when the Araz family is curious about my lily. This is too suspicious. Chloe's expression was wary. Could it be the Araz family? Diallo's eyes were sharp. That's right. They plan to check the state of my lily. During the fitting, his bare torso was wrapped in a measuring tape. Countless shadowy hands reaching for him. Chloe's expression was grave. As expected, they'll stop at nothing to check the lily. Such a despicable method is very much the Araz family style. Even if I use Nero's power to erase one lily, I must avoid being exposed. Otherwise, all our efforts will be for nothing. A tailor in pajamas and a nightcap was panicking. What? Formal attire for the gathering? I haven't made such an important outfit in a long time. The tailor waved his hands frantically to stand out on such an important occasion. I don't dare to make it, and there's less than a day left. Chloe stood behind the tailor, her eyes calm. Every second counts now. How long have you been a tailor? The tailor replied, for 47 years. Chloe crossed her arms. That's enough. Please start immediately. The tailor quickly waved his hands. No. I can't do it. A golden light flashed in Chloe's eyes. Of course, I will compensate you. Whatever price you name. 10 times or 100 times. The tailor stared, dumbfounded. Chloe just said, Tailor, you can do it, right? A fighting spirit ignited in the tailor's eyes. I'll bet my 47 years of experience on it. I will do my absolute best. Chloe's lips curved up slightly. Good, let's go. A golden light flashed. The group entered the room. Inside the room hung an unfinished formal outfit. Several tailor's assistants bowed. Your Grace the Duke. Your Grace the Duchess. The tailor looked at the unfamiliar faces. Who? Are they your workshop's assistants? The tailor turned to Chloe in confusion. No, they are not. An assistant explained with a smile. We are from a nearby tailor shop. We heard it was an emergency and came specially to help with the measurements. Chloe and the tailor looked at the group. Chloe crossed her arms, her eyes cold. They're acting just as I predicted. The real tailor picked up a measuring tape. I'll start right away. Please assist me. The tailor's assistants gathered around. Yes, let's begin. Chloe spoke coldly. Wait, I absolutely detest people touching what belongs to me. Without permission, Chloe crossed her arms, her expression icy. So I will take his measurements myself. Did you think I would let you off so easily? The tailor's assistants looked at each other, their expressions shocked. What's this?